Chapter 1546. Damn it, this update value is a little scary. Lin Chen rubbed his chin. This system probably wouldn't be updated in a short time. Attribute points, what AF * king shortage. The fifth ultimate armor of the God of War needs a lot of attribute points. This system update also needs more attribute points. Lin Chen couldn't help but sigh. If only there's another batch of demon lords for me to kill. Swoosh. At this moment, Shangguan Wudi's figure appeared in a stream of light, bowing. My lord, please excuse me. I've already made all the preparations. Buzz. Ripples appeared in the space, and Goddess Baiyu and Xiao Ling dressed in white, opened a space passage and appeared. Behind the goddess were Elder Hundred Burial, Ji Wuchen, Eye of Heaven, Gui Jianshou, Destruction Twins, and Zi Qianshou of the 12 Dao Palaces. They all appeared at the same time. My lord, we've found the location of Wudi's enemy. Senior Taishu has already covered up the killing intent for us, and Brother Tianjin has already eliminated the aura for us. Xiao Ling bowed slightly, looking otherworldly and otherworldly. She was quite similar to Ning Qingxian, but there was a hint of obedience in her. Where is the target? Lin Chen clapped his hands and stood up with a smile. The old Ji Wuchen smiled and said, coincidentally, it's within the blood realm that I controlled back then. They even established an 8th rank sect. Their foundation is not bad. Very good, Shangguan Wudi. How did your enemy treat your family back then? As your lord, I order you to pay them back 100 times the price. Monstrous killing intent flashed across Lin Chen's brows. He was like a formidable hero of a generation, domineering beyond compare. If they dare to hang the corpses of your family members on the city wall, then go annihilate their entire family. Dig up their ancestral graves and burn them. I, Lin Chen, have never believed in fate. A life for a life is right and proper. What bullsh *t about retribution for evil? There's a heavenly Tao. Those who are free and unfettered in the world are mostly worried about the wicked. Kill them and we'll be the heavens. Shangguan Wudi's eyes flashed with a boundless world of thunder and lightning. He cupped his fists and shouted. Wudi, take my order. Blood for blood. Lin Chen looked into the distance and sneered. Before challenging the Divine Flame Palace, let's destroy a grade 8 sect as a warm-up. Xiao Ling covered her mouth and chuckled. My lord is truly an ambitious and ruthless person. Ha ha. Ambitious and ruthless? Forget it. I'm just a guy who doesn't care about life and death. If I'm not convinced, I'll do it. Lin Chen laughed heartily and waved his hand. Let's go to the blood realm. Understood. Xiao Ling flicked her sleeve, and a spatial cube appeared in the air, enveloping everyone. It instantly flashed and disappeared. The yellow region was extremely far away from the blood region. One was in the south, while the other was in the north. If a saint were to travel, even if they entered the fastest spatial passageway, it would take at least 100 years. However, this did not include some of the more powerful saints, especially the White Jade Fairy, Xiao Ling. She was the one who had truly mastered the myriad manifestations spatial divine technique, and had once received the inheritance of a true god. Back then, Fairy White Jade's name was unparalleled in spirit realm. A Saint King's spatial transference or peerless movement techniques were far inferior in front of her spatial divine technique. Back then, a mighty figure from the Saint King region invited her to join a certain mysterious plan, wanting to use her spatial divine technique, but was rejected by Xiao Ling. In order to capture her, the Saint King region wanted to sneak in and force her to submit. They sent out a total of 2 Saint Kings and many Peak Saints. Even when she was finally detained in the Saint prison, not a single saint dared to come within 300 meters of her. No one dared to underestimate her attainments in spatial divine technique. Getting close would be life-threatening, and Saint Kings were no exception. Lin Chen stepped into the spatial cube. He watched the spatial transference, and the scenery changed continuously. In less than a day, he had passed through 3 regions. In less than 2 days, high above the blood region's shattered bone mountain range, a spatial light flashed and everyone appeared. Lin Chun held the roasted gluten in his hand, and was even a little dumbfounded. This is the myriad manifestations spatial divine technique? Isn't this too fast? Lin Chun sighed in amazement and couldn't help but ask Xiao Linger. With his current cultivation, using the 9 wings of the heavenly demon was already considered divine speed. But compared to Xiao Linger's myriad manifestations spatial divine technique, it was like the difference between a small bird and a great rock. They were not on the same level at all. My lord, that's not entirely true. If I use this speed normally, I would need to use more cultivation. Xiao Linger smiled slightly, her dimples like a flower, and her gaze turned to a handsome figure. But it's all thanks to Zi Qianqiu's help that I can reach this speed now. Zi Qianqiu nodded and smiled. A little spatial formation, a small trick. My lord, please don't laugh at me. Hearing that, Lin Chun suddenly felt that the roasted gluten in his hand was no longer fragrant, and the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. You call this a small trick? Then isn't my movement technique like a baby doing somersaults? Everyone burst into laughter. Even Tian Wu and Di Mie, who were serious in speech and manner, revealed a hint of a smile. This lord is very honest. 12 Palaces Zi Qianqiu, a peerless formation master, the founder of the 12 Palaces formation system. His formation mastery was enough to rank him in the top 3 of the sacred boundary. With his spatial formation paired with Xiao Linger's myriad manifestations spatial divine technique, he could truly achieve the heavenly shift. In less than 2 days, he could cross the distance of the 9 regions. Ji Wuchen smiled and said, My lord, you're still young and have unlimited potential in the future. You're much stronger than we were back then. It's only a matter of time before you surpass us. That was right. It was exactly what Guardian Lan of the Divine Flame Palace was most worried about. These experts, each of them might be extremely strong individually, but they still did not have the foundation to shake a 9th-rank sect. However, if there was someone in this world who could unite all of them into a team, it would be a team with unlimited possibilities in the world. Without a doubt, in the entire sacred boundary, perhaps only Lin Chun, who had broken into the holy prison alone, could do it. Even the Saint Talent ranking might not be able to convince these Saint Talents of the past. Blood Region, Divine Dragon Ridge, Azure Dragon Palace. This place was one of the headquarters of the Azure Dragon Palace. The Azure Dragon Palace was resplendent and dazzling with holy light. It was extremely difficult to imagine that such a desolate area could have such a fairy-like existence on Earth. Today, the Azure Dragon Palace master was meeting an important old companion, an old friend who had carried out the extermination of the Shangguan clan mission with him back then. Haha, your brother Su Yang has broken through to the 4th transformation saint in recent years. Why didn't you come to my Azure Dragon Palace? You don't treat me as one of your own. The Azure Dragon Palace master sat at the head of the palace with an amiable and courteous expression. Occasionally, a bright light flashed across his eyes. He was hugging a peerless beauty. Her figure was hot, and her clothes were as thin as cicadas' wings. She was full of tenderness and her red lips were soft like cherry blossoms. Nothing could be more beautiful. She was indeed a peerless, enchanting beauty. Another saint with a stocky build raised his wine cup and drank heartily. He wiped the wine stains and laughed. What's there to celebrate about becoming a 4th transformation saint? How can it be as fast as you and sister-in-law? You're about to advance to 5th transformation. Back then, you've gained quite a lot from taking down the Shangguan clan. This Azure Dragon Palace might even become a first-rate 8th-rank force in the future. Ha ha, please don't laugh at me. Come, let's drink again. Brother has cooperated once this time, let's do it again. Oh? What pray have you set your eyes on this time? A declining 8th-rank sect. You and I have always had big appetite. Let's eat it together? Eat, we must eat. He had to eat quickly and accurately. It's fine if we don't open our mouths, but once we do, we must eat until our mouths are full of oil. The three looked at each other and smiled. At this time, an attendant's transmission came from outside the door. Palace Master, someone wants to see you. The Azure Dragon Palace Master frowned. Didn't I say that I won't see anyone today? The attendant said again. That person said he came to check the water meter. Azure Dragon Palace Master. Chapter 1547. Bang. Inside the Azure Dragon Hall, heaven and earth were overturned. The Azure Dragon Hall Master was sent flying by a palm strike. He was bathed in blood and spat out chunks of blood, his eyes filled with disbelief. Shangguan Wudi, it's you. You're not dead? You can still come out after entering a place like the Holy Hell? The Azure Dragon Hall Master looked at the tall man in front of him in shock and trembled as he muttered to himself, "This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible." Shangguan Wudi was clad in purple gold battle armor. His face was chiseled, and his cold face was filled with violent killing intent. His gaze was like two shocking bolts of lightning, and his cold, killing intent pierced through the clouds. You will pay for all the lives of my Shangguan families, 390 people with blood. I will uproot all the families and businesses that were involved in your atrocities back then. Shangguan Wudi suddenly struck out with a palm strike, shattering all the defensive sacred weapons on his body. With a twist of his fingers, lightning exploded and formed a vortex that sucked him in. The Azure Dragon Hall Master's body instantly split open. It was actually an avatar that could save his life. "Save me, Jinglang!" When the beautiful woman screamed, the Azure Dragon Hall Master could not keep up with her at all. When he tried to escape into the void, he realized that the void had already been sealed. What kind of spatial secret technique is this? The Azure Dragon Hall Master was stunned. His figure reappeared, and he was still in the Azure Dragon Hall. This is the Myriad Forms spatial divine technique. The fairy smiled. When she arrived in the air, she stood behind the silver-robed youth. Azure Dragon Hall Master, you didn't expect this day, did you? Back then, you set up a honey trap and took her down with poison. The silver-robed youth smiled mockingly. Even if it's the holy hell, it doesn't mean that it's an uncrossable hell. A group of figures appeared beside the silver-robed youth. When they saw the people beside him, the Azure Dragon Hall Master and his brothers trembled, and despair appeared in their eyes for the first time. What kind of goddamn team was this? The strongest assassin in the Sky Sanctuary region, annihilation of heaven and earth. The overlord of the Blood Realm Forbidden Arts, 100 Burial Elder, Ji Wuchen. The Spirit Region's White Jade Fairy, Xiao Ling Xuanyu's Eye of Heaven, Worry. The origins of these people were so terrifying and ancient that if he hadn't witnessed their era all those years ago, he wouldn't have even been able to recognize them. Lin Chen pretended to be strict as he criticized. "What are you guys doing? Didn't I tell you to hide your identities? Why did you show them? Look at how scared they are. He even had to pee his pants before he died. It's too tragic." Everyone held back their laughter. This lord was really good at acting. She was clearly the one who told them to reveal their identities. "I'll kill you all." Their saint acupoints glowed brightly, expanding at an incredible speed in the blink of an eye. Self-detonation. The self-destruction of 2 Fourth Revolution sages was enough to flatten countless spatial planes. If they were allowed to explode, then everything in an area of a few million kilometers would probably be reduced to ashes. Spatial manifestation. Xiao Ling flicked her finger, and a silver light flashed, transforming into a spatial force that enveloped the surroundings. In an instant, it contracted, and the two of them were locked within an extremely small spatial cube. Whoosh! Lin Chen's avatar appeared. Everything happened in 1,000th of a breath's time. Lin Chen struck out with his palm. Beyond the space-time plane, whoosh, the two of them vanished. In the void beyond the space-time plane, an earth-shattering energy heatwave suddenly exploded. Even their spatial sacred artifacts and Providence plant pouches were blown into pieces, turning into attribute light balls that filled the sky. These two people were determined to die. They didn't even leave behind their spiritual power when they self-detonated, completely evaporating. Yes, the system determines whether or not I participated in the encirclement of the enemy based on whether or not I used my innate talent or cultivation method to attack the enemy. Lin Chen thought to himself as he collected the attribute light balls in the space-time plane. There were 3 normal ways for living beings to drop attribute values. One was by not being killed by the host, commonly known as picking up heads. There weren't many attribute light balls dropped in this way. The second was by participating in the battle, but not being killed by the host. The attribute value dropped in this way was average, but under normal circumstances, there wouldn't be any supreme grade attribute treasures dropped. The third was by directly killing the host. This was the most important step. If there were no special restrictions, the stronger the difference in rank, the higher the attribute light balls dropped. Woody, don't kill me. Back then, I was also threatened by him to poison you. If I didn't do this, my entire clan would have been wiped out. The enchanting beauty cried as she knelt in front of Shangguan Wudi, begging for mercy. Shangguan Wudi's face suddenly softened. He bent down and reached out to touch the beauty's snow-white cheek. The beauty's body trembled. Seeing that there was some tenderness in his eyes, she couldn't help but feel relieved. Great, I've deceived him. He still remembers their old relationship, and I don't have to die. Back then, I fought with all the strong people in various regions and wanted to become the first person to be invincible below the Holy King. For you, I was willing to put away all the grudges. I thought you would be the woman who would change my life. I thought I could retire with you. You once had the chance to get everything, but you betrayed me. Shangguan Wudi's face instantly turned cold. You poisoned me and colluded with others to kill me. I don't even blame you. But of all the things you shouldn't have done, you shouldn't have touched my people. That's my bottom line. In exchange for a bit of cultivation, you were willing to wipe out my entire clan. Why should I spare your life? Rumble. The entire Azure Dragon Hall was filled with lightning like dancing dragons. The sky instantly darkened, as if they had fallen into a world of thunderstorms. Shangguan Wudi instantly struck out with his palm, which contained millions of lightning bolts, and hit the top of her head. Splat. Rip. Space was torn into a vacuum. Even blood did not splatter. A third revolution saint was slapped into a human skin on the spot. The beautiful woman might have been in disbelief even in death. If she had become Shangguan Wudi's woman back then, she might not even have the possibility of surpassing the heaven-opening realm in this lifetime. However, killing the Shangguan family had allowed her to obtain the secret technique she wanted. She had broken through all the way to become a third revolution saint. However, she had never dreamed that Shangguan Wudi would return one day. Shangguan Wudi was expressionless as he killed the love of his life with his own hands. Seeing him like this, 100 Burial Elder Ji Wuchen and Zi Qianqiu revealed serious expressions. This kind of strong person was the most terrifying type. He had no attachments and no thoughts. The current Shangguan Wudi was the most terrifying and ruthless person below the sage ruler. If Lin Chen wanted him to fight to the death with a sage ruler, he would not hesitate at all. Wudi. Lin Chen patted his shoulder. Shangguan Wudi hid his killing intent deep in his heart and cupped his fists respectfully. Thank you, Lord, for fulfilling my wish. Lin Chen smiled meaningfully. You have just been reborn. Don't let me down. Shangguan Wudi was stunned and nodded heavily. Of course not. 3 days later, explosive news spread in the Blood Realm. The Rank 8 sect, Azure Dragon Hall, was destroyed. Even the 8 main territories were destroyed. None of the core elders survived, and their corpses were hung on the city walls. Countless experts guessed who it was that had the resources to destroy a rank 8 sect. Not even a single core elder was able to escape. This meant that the other party had the strength to suppress the rank 8 Azure Dragon Hall. Chapter 1548. The destruction of Azure Dragon Hall shocked all the rank 8 families and sects of the Blood Field. Everyone in the 3 regions near the Blood Field was in danger. Even the rank 8 sects were on high alert. What was terrifying was not the destruction of Azure Dragon Hall, but the fact that the corpses of all the elders of Azure Dragon Hall were hung on the city walls of Azure Dragon City. Only then did people discover that Azure Dragon Hall had been destroyed and its property confiscated. To be able to wipe out a rank 8 sect from the sacred boundary without anyone noticing, this kind of foundation was not something an ordinary expert could do. However, all of this was like a gust of wind before the storm. 4 days later, the 12-story pagoda, which was known as one of the 3 rank 8 forces of the battlefield, collapsed. On this day, the battlefield was completely overturned. The pavilion lords of the 12 floors were all rank 5 and rank 6 saint. Their old ancestor was even a rank 7 saint. His power was unparalleled. Even in an extremely long time ago, the primordial venerable dragon, the Long family that Long Jioshan belonged to, was defeated by the 12-story pagoda and suppressed to become a small family. How could such a powerful foundation fall? That's impossible. This was the sect closest to the strongest rank 8 force. The entire battlefield was in an uproar. Everyone had a premonition that a storm was approaching the battlefield. Another 4 days later, in the neighboring Yen domain, the rank 8 divine martial family and half of the other families were destroyed. Those who died were all upper echelons of the divine martial family. They were extremely old and had experienced the beginning of the sacred boundary. They were second only to the Yen domain's Chifian and the other prodigies of that era. Now, none of them were lower than rank 5 saints. Although they were a group of old monsters that were like candles in the wind, they were not people to be trifled with. After losing their upper echelons, the divine martial family would definitely face destruction. Countless families would covet them. Almost at the same time, Ice Domain, Thousand-Layer Snow Mountain, and Ice Dragon Mountain Range. 2 rank 8 families, True Martial Pavilion and Heavenly Brilliance Temple, were destroyed. 2 rank 8 forces were destroyed at the same time. This matter implicated all the upper echelons. Even the core disciples did not know when their elders, masters, deacons, and old ancestors had died. A large number of heaven-opening powerhouses, experts, and hidden old monsters came out one after another. There were even divination masters who were trying to deduce the fate of the heavens and divine the location of the danger. They were trying to figure out where exactly the danger was coming from. The first to make a move was the famous 8th-rank aristocratic family, the Nangong family. The Nangong nobles had even sent out 3 great fortune-tellers, Ancestor Nangong Tian and Grand Elder Nangong Shao. There was also Nangong Xiangyang, the most monstrous genius of the current generation, the mathematician of the 6 realms, a pretty boy on the monster ranking who had not been beaten up by Lin Chun. Within the Ice Dragon Mountain Range, the 3 great fortune-tellers rushed to the scene and were the first to arrive at the True Martial Pavilion. They didn't enter the True Martial Pavilion. Instead, they took out the fortune-teller's life tools outside the 1,000-fold snow mountain and began to deduce from the True Martial Pavilion's ominous position, calamity position, and calamity position. However, after a series of calculations, Nangong Xiangyang of the 6 Paths of Arithmetic was the first to react. No. Everyone in the True Martial Pavilion, including every single disciple, had their omens, fortuitous opportunities, tribulations, and heavenly secrets concealed when the sect was destroyed. Nangong Xiangyang and his ancestor, Nangong Tian, looked at each other. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Could it be a fortune-teller from a 9th-rank aristocratic family? No. According to what I know, Even a ninth-rank aristocratic family might not be able to do such a thing. There was only one possibility for someone to be able to conceal the fate of so many people in such a short period of time, down to every flower and grass in the true martial pavilion. That was because the other party's realm of divination was far beyond their Nangong clans by hundreds of streets, and the entire street was as long as 108,000 li. Both parties were not on the same level. They were two completely different concepts. Just as all the Grade 8 forces were waiting for the Nangong family to come back with an answer, the Nangong family closed down the next day. The Nangong family closed down their doors and fled. F***ck. This was not on the same level at all. If they tried to deduce further, they would die. The Nangong family's reaction stunned all the Grade 8 forces. Some old fortune-tellers did not believe it and continued to investigate the true martial pavilion. No matter how strong the fortune-teller was, it was useless. The true martial pavilion and the heavenly brilliance sacred hall were destroyed. It was as if they were dead from the start and no one had touched them at all. Such a method completely stunned all the saint-level fortune-tellers. A peak saint-level fortune-teller had come out. The fortune-tellers fled in panic. The Nine Shadows organization, an assassin force from a Grade 8 sect, sneered in disdain. The leader of Nine Shadows, Mo Xiaotian, even personally went to the destroyed Heavenly Brilliance Sacred Hall. However, half a day later, Mo Xiaotian, who was in the Heavenly Brilliance Sacred Hall, fell silent. He was holding a strangely shaped stick in his hand. It was broken into several pieces like a banana. What's going on with the leader? He has been staring at that stick for 15 minutes. Has the leader finally awakened some strange fetish? No, don't think too much. The leader's name is known everywhere. Even a Fifth Revolution sage has to give him some face. Why would he like a stick? A few Nine Shadows assassins whispered at the side. A moment later, Mo Xiaotian's face, which was originally cold, showed some shock and amazement. Professional. Too professional. This aura removal method, this method of eliminating space traces, it is flawless. Even a lamp stick was not spared. The traces of sacred power were completely removed. This is more than killing without spilling blood. This is simply merciless. Mo Xiaotian sighed. If there is a chance, I really want to see the expert who can use such a method. He is simply an ancestor-level figure in the assassin world. Who could have such a method? The Nine Shadows assassins were shocked. Damn, is this for real? The leader of the Nine Shadows assassin organization actually called him an expert? Mo Xiaotian's gaze became especially deep. He stared at the void, and his pupils turned from black to dark green. His dark green pupils stared at the spatial patterns that did not have any traces of space changes. He tried to see through something, but in the end, he could only see nothingness. He muttered to himself. To be able to perfectly bypass the sect-protecting formation of a Grade 8 force, to cover up the secrets of the heavens in all directions, and to have a superb aura removal method, as well as a traceless space shift method. What kind of team is this? After even the arrogant Nine Shadows left the Tianyao Temple, the various Grade 8 forces fell silent. In the following period of time, on the surface, the sacred boundary was still calm and peaceful. There was no turbulence. But in reality, fear, bewilderment, suspicion, and despair began to secretly shroud the 36 regions of the sacred boundary. This time, it was the Grade 8 families and sects who felt fear. All the Grade 8 forces in the sacred boundary were shrouded by an invisible fear and trembled. Chapter 1549. In the 36 regions of the sacred boundary, an unprecedented piece of explosive news had just spread. The demon geniuses list had been overturned, and it was by one person. The current number 1 on the demon geniuses list, Lin Chen. What made people's scalps go numb was that he had challenged the entire demon geniuses list, and it was only a clone. For a moment, the sacred boundary was in turmoil. This huge earthquake spread with the heavenly sanctuary as the center. All the forces below the 7th rank could be said to be shocking. Those who had interacted with Lin Chen or had grievances with him had very interesting expressions. The youth who had once roamed the holy prison had now grown to a level that they could only look up to. However, while the sects were shocked, there was a dark haze that quietly shrouded the various 8th rank forces. The sacred boundary was so vast that it was impossible for the weaker forces to know so much news about the 8th rank forces in a short period of time. Only the 8th rank forces had the ability and channels to know about this situation. No one knew who would be the next victim of the devastating attack. One had to know that even the weakest grade 8 forces would have several heaven-opening cultivators overseeing them, as well as 2 First Revolution saints. In terms of the foundation of the entire force, there would be at least 6 heaven-opening realm experts and 4 First Revolution saints. This was the weakest level. Generally speaking, the 8th rank families were slightly weaker than the 8th rank sections. The families mainly worshipped their own people, while the sects would take in external experts to nurture their trusted subordinate. As for the stronger 8th rank sects, such as the Azure Dragon Hall and the Heavenly Brilliance Temple, they had 4th Revolution saints. Even if a 5th Revolution saint came personally, it was impossible to destroy them. Not to mention the 12-story pagoda, a super 8th rank giant with a strong foundation. To be able to quietly wipe out such a super 8th rank sect, what kind of terrifying force had appeared? Almost all the experts unanimously believed that a hidden 9th rank sect had appeared and wanted to destroy the sect to establish its prestige. Otherwise, it would be impossible to cross so many regions in such a short period of time and cause so many murders and sect extermination incidents. Apart from the foundation of the 9th rank sects, no other force could do it. Even if a damned Saint King had appeared, there would still be a sequence in killing people. It had only been a few days, and they had already rushed from the blood domain to the ice domain? In just a month, 10 rank 8 sects had been destroyed or half destroyed. Their fates were basically the same. Their foundations were destroyed, and their upper echelons were slaughtered. This speed was too terrifying. Even within the 36 regions, there were dozens of grade 8 forces in each region. Some regions even had hundreds of grade 8 forces. Powerful regions like the Heavenly Saint region would have hundreds of grade 8 forces. However, these rank 8 organizations had been born through the accumulation of the saints' world over a long period of time, through the contention of the various schools of thought. Annihilating 10 grade 8 forces in a month? What the hell was this? Wouldn't that mean that they would have to massacre all the grade 8 forces in a single year? Finally, on the 35th day after the incident, a grade 9 force was the first to speak. The sky-bearing pavilion located in the heavenly sanctuary. One of the pavilion masters, Xing Jiutian, was a 9th Revolution saint. He represented sky-bearing pavilion and announced that he would personally track down the enemy. Once he found the enemy, he would definitely suppress them. As soon as the rank 9 sects spoke, most of the rank 8 forces calmed down. Once a rank 9 big shot made a move, even if they could not settle the matter, they should at least be able to implicate the other party, right? Otherwise, the other party would have to be wary of them. However, it seemed that the more unexpected things were, the more things would develop in that direction. Sky-bearing pavilion of the heavenly sanctuary had not spoken for 2 days, and another grade 8 family in the heavenly sanctuary had disappeared. All the grade 8 forces were scared out of their wit. It was a slap in the face, a blatant slap in the face. It was obvious that they did not take the sky-bearing pavilion's warning seriously. This was simply taking a dump on the sky-bearing pavilion and asking them to hand them paper. After the shock, what followed was an even more widespread feeling of fear. Annihilating a grade 9 force directly in their territory? What did this mean? This meant that this professional team had the means to conceal themselves from the detection of Grade 9 forces. It was equivalent to saying that annihilating a Grade 8 force was as easy as picking out one's pants. It was confirmed that a Grade 9 force had appeared. For a time, even the heavenly sanctuary was in turmoil. Even the summit of the monster list showed signs of stopping. All the Grade 8 forces were forced to unite. Damn it, they're crazy. They must be crazy. This force is crazy. How many people do they have? How strong are they? Last time, they appeared in the Yen domain. Why are they in the heavenly sanctuary now? Is this the legendary hidden Grade 9 force that randomly chooses a lucky force to annihilate? If they continue to kill like this, are they going to massacre the human race? More than half of the Grade 8 Almighties in the heavenly sanctuary gathered together. All of them looked as if they had seen a ghost. They were never afraid of strong enemies. All the Almighties in Grade 8 sects were ruthless characters. What they were afraid of was that this time, the enemy was completely unknown. Moreover, the enemy was hiding in the dark and could annihilate them without anyone noticing. If they fought with their lives on the line, they would not cower. But if they went to court death, even a saint would not dare to be fearless. On the other side, Sky-Bearing Pavilion's branch leader, Xing Jiutian, personally came out of seclusion and went to the Qin family, a Grade 8 family that had been annihilated. Sob, sob, sob. Lord Xing, you must uphold justice for us. The Qin family has made many contributions to the heavenly sanctuary for generations. I just went to the brothel. When I came back, my ancestral grave was gone. The Qin family's second-generation heir cried like a giant baby. Xing Jiutian, who had just arrived at the Qin family, glared angrily. His saint aura rolled out like a tide. Boom! The saint aura made the second-generation heir bleed from all his orifices. His spirit was shattered and he fainted. The remaining members of the Qin family kept quiet out of fear, not daring to say anything. Xing Jiutian brought his men into the Qin family, patted his shoulder, and frowned. What kind of trash are the Qin family raising? Trash that is not even on the monster ranking. Cry all you want. He went straight to the Qin family's major seclusion dimensions. The treasury was either emptied, or all the senior members of the Qin family were vaporized. Their spirit tablets were shattered, and they were completely dead. Not even their corpses were left. After half a day, Xing Jiutian completely understood the Qin family's situation. He sat in the main hall of the Qin family with an uncertain expression. Lord, can our Qin family still be saved? A relatively young Qin family's Sacred Heart deacon could not help but ask. Xing Jiutian glanced at him. There is no saving you, just wait for your death. At this time, beside Xing Jiutian, a rank 7 hunchbacked old man frowned. Pavilion Lord, I'm afraid this situation is. Xing Jiutian nodded. That's right, my guess is the same as yours, it is revenge. It is a very targeted revenge, and the target is very obvious. It is only revenge against the Qin family's older generation. None of the Qin family members born after the remote antiquity era died. Rank 9 sages were very intelligent and had quick reactions. They understood the situation in half a day. It is unlikely to be a rank 9 family. If it was a rank 9 force, they would not have mobilized such a large force in such a short time. The experts of a rank 9 force are very complicated. They would not easily mobilize such a large force. But this is a force that is even more threatening than a rank 9 force. Xing Jiutian's expression was very solemn. Chapter 1550. Xing Jiutian squinted his eyes. He seemed to be able to see the scene far away. In a way, this group is even more dangerous than a rank 9 force. Among rank 9 forces, they will not fall out with each other, their foundation will not be affected, but this is an unprecedented revenge group. This group has a clear goal, they have many experts, they are decisive and ruthless, They will not hesitate and ignore our sky-bearing pavilion's warning. They have ill intentions and are extremely vicious. Another mature and enchanting rank 6 beauty stood out, saying with lingering fear, "Pavilion Master, if we encountered this group..." Speaking of this, Xing Jiutian's eyes shined with bright light. "If we encountered them and fought them head-on, our chances of victory might be less than 10%. Once Xing Jiutian said this, the entire Qin clan felt a chill run down their spines. Oh my God! Even these almighties from grade 9 forces said that they had less than a 10% chance of winning. What kind of existence had the Qin family's patriarchs provoked? Should we interrogate these Qin clan members to see if they know anything, and if they offended anyone in the past?" The rank 6 enchanting woman suggested. Xing Jiutian looked at everyone and shook his head. "It is useless, they are just a bunch of youngsters. Why would those old fogies of Qin clan tell them anything? Every expert has their hands and feet dirty when they start up. It is normal to offend some people." Xing Jiutian revealed a reminiscing expression. "I remember some rumors. Back then, Qin clan was at its peak, but they schemed against the two great geniuses, the destruction twins Heaven and Earth Annihilation, trying to recruit them. But I heard that they fell out with each other after that." Speaking of this, even Xing Jiutian shook his head and laughed. "However, the destruction twins have been in the Saint Prison for a long time. No matter how powerful they are, they can't possibly break through the Saint Prison and escape." Break out of sacred prison and escape? Even novels would not dare to write such a thing. Thinking of this, Xing Jiutian could not be bothered to recall the rumors of Qin clan. He said with a stern expression, "This matter is not something we can handle. Anyone below the sacred king level will die. Report this to the higher-ups." Sacred boundary. While a storm was brewing in a void plain, a handsome young man with a pale and evil appearance was holding a glass roll. He looked at the number 1 position on the Demon Genius board and sneered. "You are also sitting at this position, Lin Chun." He exerted strength in his 5 fingers. With a loud sound, the evil young man crushed the glass roll in his hand. "I didn't expect that you would actually do such a world-shaking thing. I just don't know if you can bear the corresponding price." This person was the former number 1 on the Demon Genius board, Son of Heaven. Swoosh! A dark shadow that was distorted like ink appeared, and a hunchbacked old man with a walking stick appeared. His eyebrows were filled with ruthlessness. "I'm going to personally devour the shadow beside that brat." 14th stage of the final shadow. Judging from his appearance, his injuries from back then had already completely healed. "How is the clear sky, Saint King?" Son of Heaven smiled and patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry, Lin Chen won't be able to escape." Ultimate Shadow's expression eased a little, and he nodded. "There are many benefits to occupying Buddha Saint's body. I found the location of the Dragon Balls with the ancient divine dragon's blood in this old man's collection, and they are all accurate. Thanks to the demons, they have all brought back the Dragon Balls. His main body should have started to recover in the sacred burial mountain range." Son of Heaven's expression was a little serious. "How is it? How is his recovery? If he recovers to his peak state, it won't be good for us." Ultimate Shadow sneered. "So what if he has the Dragon Balls with the divine dragon's blood essence? It won't be easy for him to recover to his peak state. At most, he will recover half of it, and he will still be a living dead." "That's good." Son of Heaven nodded. "By the way, you said that the kid has a lot of helpers. What's going on?" Ultimate Shadow frowned and stared at Son of Heaven. He smiled casually. "There are indeed many experts, and each of them has a big background. If some of them were at their peak, I might not be their match." "They are that strong?" Ultimate Shadow was shocked. "They are strong, but I'm afraid he doesn't have the qualifications to lead that team, ha ha." Son of Heaven laughed loudly, his eyes shining brightly. When Son of Heaven had brought 9 evil sword Hall's heaven-opening realm to the mystic realm, if he had insisted on fighting Lin Chen to the death, he would have been able to get rid of a large number of his servants. In fact, he, son of Heaven, could even kill over 2/3 of the servants by Lin Chen's side. However, he would have died without a doubt. Even if he was heavily injured, the experts by Lin Chen's side, especially those legendary figures, were still Ninth Revolution saints. If the other party disregarded everything and released his cultivation that was suppressing his injuries, he would explode with his strongest attack in the shortest amount of time. In that case, Son of Heaven would definitely have no chance of winning, and there was even a high chance that he would die. Instead of dying together, he might as well retreat and preserve his strength. Now, Son of Heaven felt more and more that his decision was correct. During this period of time, he finally figured out who those big shots by Lin Chen's side were. Ancient God, your eyesight is still so shrewd. You can even find such a young man, and you want to overturn the case again. Even someone as arrogant as Son of Heaven couldn't help but be amazed by Lin Chen. Outstanding people would always admire and attract each other. Unfortunately, the two of them were never on the same path. Since they couldn't be partners, they could only destroy each other. Shadow, only you can complete this task. You have to send this item to a place. Son of Heaven flicked his finger, and his Heaven talisman floated in front of Ultimate Shadow. Where? Ultimate Shadow was curious and didn't give Son of Heaven any face, directly opening the Heaven talisman. The next moment, he cried out in shock. Holy prison? Outside the sacred boundary, in the distant starry sky, stars twinkled, and the galaxy was vast. Under the starry sky, countless energy storms wreaked havoc, but there was a darkness hidden deep under the starry sky, as if it had never changed. A dark shadow dotted the void, and the dark energy waves turned into a curtain of darkness that rolled out. Dozens of figures took human form and floated in the air, but the strange thing was that their facial features were a mass of darkness. These beings weren't humans. When the curtain of darkness was lifted, another world was hidden under the galaxy. Countless continental plates floated in the air, and dark energy surged around them as if it had cut off the entire space. There were countless strange buildings inside the continental plates, and most of them were in the shape of minaret. Every minaret was shrouded in a mass of darkness, and they seemed to be resting and holding their breath. The dozens of figures surged into one of the continental plates, and the dark energy under the tumbling galaxy closed again as if the space had never changed. Inside a dark hall, hundreds of dark shadows floated. They emitted a mysterious spatial fluctuation between each other. This was their race's unique way of communicating. In human language, it was roughly as follows: perfect, too perfect. I didn't think that someone would pass the test of the innate Dark Shadow King after the ancient era. This child will definitely be the next Dark Shadow King of the Dark Shadow race. He will definitely lead our race to prosperity. But he has many bloodlines. The king of the Dark Shadow race shouldn't be a bastard. Bastard my ass. Can't you see the potential in him? The physical body of the dragon race, the divine abilities of the demon race, and the talent of the Dark Shadow race. He has the infinite possibilities of our race. He makes up for all the shortcomings of the Dark Shadow race. The Dark Shadow race shouldn't let an outsider like him inherit the throne. If you talk nonsense again, I'll tear your big mouth apart. Damn it, are you looking for a fight? A group of innate Dark Shadow race experts were arguing here, but on the surface, they seemed to be making gugga-gugga sounds. It sounded like pigeons. Yep, pigeons. Chapter 1551. Thousand Regions, a Rank 8 Sect, Cloud Rain Sect. It was the most prosperous sect among the female prodigies of the Thousand Regions. The Cloud Rain Sect was one of the best even among the Grade 8 factions. Their founder was a peerless genius, one of the Thousand Regions' Scarlet Twin Absolute. His talent was astounding, and although he was not ranked on the Saint Talent rankings, he was comparable to the Saint Talent rankings. It was said that she had already become a powerful rank 7 saint in her early years. Her sex overall strength was top-notch even among the rank 8 forces in the sacred boundary. Cloud Rain Mountain Range. This mountain was covered in clouds and rain. It was as beautiful as a paradise in the human world. At the peak of the mountain range, on the top floor of a violet cloud pavilion, a beautiful young lady in a green dress was sitting on a cloud platform. She propped up her jade-like cheeks and swayed her slender snow-white legs. Clouds and mist swirled around her. The young lady was hidden in the immortal mist, like a celestial fairy. Her beautiful eyes flickered, and there was sadness in her eyes as she recalled the past. Sister, our dream back then has already been realized. When will you be able to witness this moment? The girl in the green dress gritted her teeth. Damned sacred prison! What dogs hit gods, what history of creation, it's all for the sake of hegemony. Master, you just came out of seclusion, and you're thinking about that martial uncle again? At this time, the girl's cold and pleasant voice sounded. The girl in the green dress put away her sadness and jumped off the cloud platform with a bright smile. So it's Chinue. How was it, my precious disciple? Did you get first place on the Demon Genius board? The beauty was wearing a snow-white dress and holding 2 cups of fragrant tea. There was a hint of helplessness on her cold and beautiful face. No, I met some annoying things and a annoying and mysterious guy. The beauty was Fei Chinue, ranked 5th on the Demon Genius board. The girl in the green dress took the tea and sat down casually. She smiled. You're not young anymore. It's time to find someone to marry. Fei Chinue rolled her eyes and sat beside her master with a cup of tea. She pouted her lips and said unhappily, Master, didn't you teach us that women can also hold up half the sky? The girl in the green dress chuckled. That doesn't mean you'll be single forever. What does holding up half the sky have to do with finding a man? At most, your man can't hold it up, and you can help him hold it up. Fei Chinue was unconvinced. Then, Master, why don't you find a man? The girl in the green dress puffed out her chest confidently, swaying the waves of snow as she proudly said, That's because no man is worthy of your master. Fei Chinue curled her lips. If you don't want to marry, then don't marry. No one is worthy of you, TSK. The girl in the green dress smiled and said, What about you? Are all the men you know not good enough for you? That can't be right. According to what Master knows, there have already been saints who have offered you an olive branch. Fei Chinue was stunned. Many scenes flashed through her mind. In the end, it stopped at the sight of the topless young man's face and the way he challenged the entire monster genius list. He was like an invincible god descending from the heavens. When she saw that her disciple had actually stopped, the girl in the green dress desire to watch the show immediately burned fiercely. Her beautiful eyes emitted a holy light, and her snow-white dimples were full of smiles. Ioyo, you actually stopped talking. Come, tell me. Which little bastard is so lucky to be able to hook up with my disciple, Chinue? Fei Chinue rolled her eyes and her delicate ears turned slightly red. She harumphed coldly. I'm not. I didn't say it. I didn't. Don't talk nonsense. You're anxious. Hurry and tell me. Who is it? The girl in the green dress was even more curious. Although this lass was peerlessly talented, she was an orphan from a young age and was abandoned in an ordinary family. Later on, a diviner of Cloud Rain sect calculated that a baby with a monstrous talent had appeared in the vicinity of Cloud Rain sect. That was how she was found and adopted. After understanding her background, Fei Chinue empathized with her and was willing to make an exception to take her in as a disciple. After Fei Chinue acknowledged her as her master, she even changed her surname. The relationship between the two of them was that of a teacher and a friend, with a strong sense of kinship. In her heart, she hoped that this lass could have a home of her own. Time truly does not show mercy. You even have a child now, Chinue? When the ethereal and elegant voice reverberated through the cloud platform, The girl in the green dress froze on the spot as if she was struck by lightning. This voice, this tone. Whoosh! At that moment, the clouds parted and the spiritual smoke dispersed. A ray of light shone into the cloud platform of Cloud Rain Sect. When it shone on Fei Qinyu's jade-like cheeks, her light red dress fluttered. The beauty was like an orchid in a secluded valley. When she smiled, the world seemed to be reborn. Qinyu, long time no see. Sister, is it really you? Fei Qinyu's body trembled. When she walked over, she cried tears of joy. Her eyes were filled with ecstasy and shock. During the primordial age, the great war of thousands of sects at the sacred boundary had involved billions of living beings in the war. She and her sister had depended on each other for survival since young. She expected that one day she would be able to build her own home with her sister. Women should strive for self-improvement and survive in this cruel era without relying on anyone. After that, she and her sister experienced countless tribulations and attained the Great Tao, seizing opportunities to surpass Khanate sages and become the Thousand Domains' Scarlet Twin Absolute. Back then, when the two sisters were standing at the peak of the Thousand Domains era, her sister was attacked by the Holy Prison. In the current era, the Holy Prison was just established. It gathered power and ordered all forces at the sacred boundary to obey its orders. Any genius without a background of a rank 9 force would be punished by the heavens if they did not obey the orders of the Holy Prison. As for the strongest people in the world, they were all suppressed and thrown into the Holy Prison, becoming the power of the Holy Prison. Back then, if her sister had not surrendered herself to protect her younger self, she would have been imprisoned in the Holy Prison as well. After that, many peak-level saints who did not have a strong background either directly retired or joined 9th grade forces to protect themselves. Only those who were stubborn were suppressed, and the prides of many eras were completely eliminated. Most of the peerless geniuses and sages that were born after that had great backgrounds. Fei Qinyu wanted to save her sister even at the cost of her life. But against the colossal Holy Prison, even someone as strong as a sage was no match for it. She never thought that she would be able to meet her sister again today. It's me. I'm back. And I'm back in one piece. When Fei Wuxuang smiled, the girl in the green dress immediately rushed over and hugged her, tears welling up in her eyes. Sister, I missed you so much. Whoa. Fei Qinyu, who had cultivated for dozens of eras, and was incomparably strong in everyone's eyes, was now like a little girl who had been wronged. She shed tears in her sister's arms without regret. Caressing Fei Qinyu's hair, Fei Wuxuang sighed and then smiled at Fei Qinyu. Little girl, how old are you? 3,007 years old. Fei Qinyu was so shocked that she subconsciously replied, your martial aunt Wuxuang? She had heard her master mention that this martial ant was imprisoned in the Holy Prison and was one of the strongest who was suppressed back then. Fei Wuxuang didn't immediately answer her. A sacred light flashed in her beautiful eyes as if she had seen through all of Fei Qinyu's secrets. In an instant, Fei Qinyu felt a piercing pain as if every inch of her flesh had been seen through. This is Qinyu, an orphan disciple I took in. She's one of us, so don't worry about me. Hurry up and tell me, how did you come back? Fei Qinyu smiled with tears in her eyes, then looked at Fei Wuxuang's body with concern. Sister, how are you now? After you were locked up in the Holy Prison, did those people torture you? Did they do anything excessive to you? Fei Wuxuang smiled sweetly. Haha, they wanted to. Even though I was imprisoned, no one below the Holy King level dared to touch me. Even if a Holy King level powerhouse wanted to touch me, they would have to consider whether to lose a few pieces of flesh for a moment of lust. Fei Qinyu nodded in agreement. She knew her sister's strength the best. Even if her cultivation had not reached the Holy King level, there were only a few Holy Kings in the world who dared to touch her body so unscrupulously. Back then, the Demon Empress had forced the gods to retreat with a single slash and killed her way through the Holy Prison, freeing a large number of vicious powerhouses. When her sister was not among them, Fei Qinyu was worried and conflicted. I have to thank my lord for being able to come out. Fei Wuxuang smiled. Fei Wuxuang's expression changed slightly and she retreated. She said in a trembling voice, Sister, did you submit to the demon race? Look at how scared her sister was. Fei Wuxuang smiled and said, No, my lord is a human. She looked into the distance. He just happened to be here. Compared to me introducing him, it's better for you to see him with your own eyes. As soon as she said that, boom. At this moment, the clouds rolled in the sky, and a handsome silver-robed figure gradually appeared. He stepped on the air and a teasing smile appeared on his handsome face. Wuxuang, although it's a joy to meet as sisters, let's go back to the Ice Heart Palace first. Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun's enemies have been dealt with, and there's not much time left. Fei Wuxuang smiled like a flower. My lord, please wait a moment. Fei Qinyu felt like she was struck by lightning. My sister's master is actually such a young saint? Other than being handsome, this kid didn't seem to have anything else. However, what was even more shocking was Fei Qinyu, whose red lips were wide open. Lin Chen? He was actually the lord of this legendary martial uncle. Even if he could challenge the demon race list alone, he should still be very far away from a powerhouse like her master. This martial uncle had already become a 9th Revolution saint back then and was a genius who led the Thousand Domains era. Where did he come from? Chapter 1552. Fei Wuxuang looked back at her younger sister and said solemnly, Qianyu, quickly greet Lord Lin Chen. Fei Qinyu was taken aback and awkwardly bowed to a junior. Qianyu greets Lord. It was her first time bowing to such a young man. Lin Chen waved his hand and smiled casually. No need. Wuxuang, don't bother with these. This beauty looks a little familiar. Oh, it's the pretty girl from the Monster Genius list. Lin Chen's eyes turned and when he saw Fei Qinyu, he suddenly understood. Fei Qinyu was still rooted to the spot in shock. Martial uncle had returned and called Lin Chen, who was of the same generation, as Lord. These two pieces of information were too explosive, and Fei Qinyu felt that her brain was not enough to process it. Which 9th Revolution saint wasn't the most powerful person in the world? Even sage kings might not be able to subdue them, let alone martial uncle who was one of the best among 9th Revolution saints. Could Lin Chen be stronger than a sage king? She immediately thought of the words he said after he challenged the Monster Genius list. I'm in a hurry, and I have important things to do. Now it seemed that this was not a bluff. Perhaps he really did have an important matter of becoming the number 1 on the Monster Genius list. Especially when he bestowed her with a good fortune, mastering a high-grade orange cultivation technique in half a month. After cultivating to the Great Success realm, he only lacked one item to reach the Great Perfection realm. Even a sage king might not be able to compare to this. Lin Chen, who are you? Fei Qinyu couldn't help but ask. Lin Chen had a serious expression as he solemnly said, You finally discovered my secret? Fine, I'll tell you in advance since I have to announce it to the world one day. Fei Qinyu held her breath. What kind of secret was this? Lin Chen said seriously. That's right, I'm the most handsome man in the sacred boundary. Fei Qinyu, Fei Wuxuang, I'm already used to it. Since Lord is in a hurry, let's talk while we walk. Fei Wuxuang smiled. Fei Qinyu turned to look at Fei Qinyu with a serious expression. Qinyu, I'll leave the Cloud Rain sect to you for now. With your prestige, no one in the sect is unconvinced. After saying this, Fei Qianyu left with her sister, leaving Fei Qinyu alone in the wind. Before leaving, Lin Chen even turned around and winked at Fei Qinyu with a playful expression. Fei Qinyu gritted her teeth in anger. This man was so damn flirtatious, and he was even trying to keep her in suspense. If you want to watch, go to the Godflame Palace in the Sage Monarch domain. But don't get too close. The young man's laughter reverberated in Fei Qingyu's ears, and by the time she reacted, he had already left. Fei Qingyu muttered to herself. Divine Flame Palace? Could it be the recent god investiture ceremony? Why is he going to the Divine Seal ceremony? Divine Mysteries Pavilion, Heavenly Sanctuary Region. This was the most famous 8th grade force in the Heavenly Sanctuary. Even 9th grade forces would treat them with respect. That was because the most elite and freakishly talented diviners were gathered here. Not even the forces of the Sage Monarch domain dared to underestimate them. Today, all the saint-level diviners of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion had come out of seclusion. That was because there were too many experts who had begged the Divine Mysteries Pavilion to help them deduce the future trends of the sacred boundary and help their forces calculate. Unfortunately, even someone as powerful as the Deputy Pavilion Lord of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion could not deduce what the situation was this time. On the top floor of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion, in a secret meeting room, the fragrance of tea lingered in the air. 2 men and a woman sat there cross-legged. The man had a sage-like demeanor, while the woman was still charming. The Heavenly Sanctuary region has been very lively recently. Many sage geniuses have appeared. I'm afraid they are going to stir up trouble. What a bunch of restless fellows. I'm afraid the great calamity that the Divine Mysteries Pavilion predicted is coming soon. Are we going to part ways? The trend of the world is that those who are separated for a long time will unite, and those who are united will divide. The 2 sage-like old seniors shook their heads and laughed. It was as if they had already seen through everything in the world. The charming woman in palace attire looked at the starry sky. Her eyes shone with a strange light as she reminisced. If only he were here. If he were here, he would definitely be able to improve further and pry into the secrets of heaven. Perhaps the great calamity of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion would not be impossible to deal with. The other 2 old men sighed. That's right. Our ancestor once prophesied that he would be the most outstanding fortune-teller in the history of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion. We thought that he would need 10,000 years to reach that level, but he advanced in less than 1,000 years. The beautiful woman gritted her teeth. That damned sacred prison. They said that his existence would make heaven and earth lose balance. They are obviously targeting us. It's a pity that the Divine Mysteries Pavilion is only a fortune-teller organization and not a powerful rank 9 sect. The 2 old men could only sigh deeply when they heard that. In heaven and earth, when a person's ability reached the peak, they would naturally attract the wind and attract an ominous calamity. It was as if even he had boasted that he was destined to face such a calamity. The beautiful woman in palace attire pursed her lips. It's a pity that before he was detained in the sacred prison, his greatest wish was to solve that senior's exquisite chess game. Not being able to solve the game might have become Taishu's lifelong regret. The 2 old men looked at each other and stood up after sighing with emotion. Haha, since you mentioned an old friend, why don't we go and see how he solved the game back then? With that, the 2 old men flicked their fingers and teleported. The 3 of them arrived at a sacred mountain of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion. Immortal fog surrounded them like clouds and dragons swallowing fog. At the peak of the sacred mountain was a heavenly lake and a chessboard that was dozens of feet long. The chessboard was decorated with starlight, as if it was connected to the heavens. Every chess piece contained profound principles and endless providence, as if they were living beings. And when the chess pieces were connected, each connection would create more possibilities. There were a total of 9,999 chess pieces on the chessboard. They contained the great Tao and were in harmony with the heavenly Tao. It formed the shape of a supreme treasure, Ling Long. When the 3 of them saw the exquisite chess game again, they could not help but feel emotional. Only a fortune-teller who had divined billions of heavenly secrets could possibly set up such a godly chess game. When the 3 of them walked closer to take a look, they were instantly dumbfounded. The game had been reversed. The chess pieces were also exquisite patterns, but they had been completely reversed. They were all interconnected and guided the great Tao of heavenly secrets. Boom! The minds of the three went blank. The exquisite chess game has been broken. What's going on? When did this happen? Why did no one notice such a change in the Divine Mysteries Pavilion? Wait! Look, there are words left on the chessboard. A layer of 5-colored sacred light was faintly flowing under the exquisite chess game. Everyone took a closer look. The sacred light outlined an ancient scroll. I didn't know the true face of Mount Lu, but I was fated to be in this mountain. Today, after breaking down, I stood up. With my exquisite heart, I illuminate the mountains and rivers. In the great void, the heavenly Tao is free. Witness the countless tribulations of the past. Observe the history of the past and present. Don't enter the 6 realms. Don't ask the 9 realms. Don't ask for the gods. Don't ask for falsehoods. My heart follows my Lord, and there will be no gods. If you ask who broke this game, it will be me, the master of the great void. A string of sacred words flowed majestically and elegantly. Hot tears soaked her cheeks. The beautiful woman in the palace gown covered her red lip. Her tears of joy were filled with shock. It's him. He's not dead. He's still alive. He even left the holy prison and returned here. Could the most powerful fortune-teller in the history of the Divine Mysteries Pavilion, Jiang Taishu, be returning to the sacred boundary? Chapter 1553. Jiang Taishu, the most powerful fortune-teller in the history of the Divine Mystery Pavilion, was going to return to the sacred boundary? But how did he return from the sacred prison? Wait, why would a team suddenly appear in the sacred boundary and massacre all the Grade 8 forces? Their movements were so powerful that even the Divine Mystery Pavilion could not predict it? And Jiang Taishu just happened to return at this time? When the 2 elders of the Divine Mystery Pavilion stared at the sacred text burning in the sacred light, their pupils dilated. They started calculating at the same time, trying to deduce the recent events and opportunities. Coincidence, it was too much of a coincidence. It could not be so coincidental. The 2 elders started calculating, and their hearts trembled. No matter what, the sacred boundary was going to change. In the firmament star field, inside a broken continental plate, sword chi was everywhere, and saber intent was everywhere. Sword chi was as sharp as a crescent moon hanging in the sky. On a sacred mountain inside the continental plate, a white-robed man with dashing brows and bright eyes was sitting cross-legged. Sword chi was everywhere around him, cutting through the void. He had a vague feeling of reaching the peak. Beside him was a fierce man leaning against a cliff. His face was chiseled and his features were firm. However, he had a mocking smile on his face. Fong Ling, how do you feel after killing your old rival? These 2 were Lang Fanyun and Fong Ling. Fong Ling's expression was indifferent as he said slowly, I don't feel much. At most, I got rid of a thought. When I first became a 9th transformation saint, I wanted to beat him up. I didn't expect that old fox to run so fast. If he had counterattacked before he died, without Jiang Taishu's help, I might have been injured. Lang Fanyun took a big gulp of wine and laughed. Say, if the 2 of us were not imprisoned back then, who do you think would have reached the godlike saber intent and sword intent in the sacred boundary, or us? Godlike sword intent and saber intent. In every era, only one godlike saber intent and one godlike sword intent could exist in the sacred boundary. Back then, the 2 of them were the ones closest to the door. But now, the godlike saber intent and sword intent in the sacred boundary had their own masters, and they were both sacred kings. Therefore, it was not a coincidence that Fong Ling and Lang Fanyun were imprisoned in the Saint prison. The interests involved were complicated and chaotic. What they killed were only the brothers of their enemies. The enemy's leader hadn't really died yet. A rare smile appeared on Fong Ling's face, as if ice had melted. There's no way to find out the answer. There are no ifs in life. The fellows from the same generation as us who did not go to prison either stagnated or became saint kings. Ever since I met my lord, being number one in the way of the sword has long been out of my sights. In my heart I have long since given up on the sword god. This sword was born for my lord. Lang Fanyun stopped drinking and looked at the distant starry sky. That's right. If it's my lord, he might be able to do it. No, I should say that there's no one more suitable than him. If even he is unable to end this era of demons and monsters, then we sword saints and saber saints will never be able to rise again. As soon as he said this, the sharpness between the two men's eyebrows became even more intense. At the foot of the mountain, 7 figures gathered. Jiang Taishu was among them. Gui Jianchou, who had the heavenly eye, seemed to have seen something powerful with his greenish-yellow sacred eye. Seniors, could it be that the two of them have come into contact with? Qi Fian nodded and sighed. Just as you guessed, the saber and sword saints, who were invincible in the sword domain and saber domain, have all returned. The other 5 people looked solemn. Jiang Taishu looked at the sacred boundary, in the direction of the sacred prison, and smiled casually. The imprisonment of the sacred prison has allowed their minds to be as clear as water, and they have improved greatly. This world will never lack monsters and geniuses. What we lack are those who can rise up after falling to the bottom and challenge fate. Jiang Taishu's eyes shone with sacred light. They are now at the moment when they have surpassed the 9 revolution saint, and are genuine half-step saint kings. Cultivation, training, accumulation, reincarnation, they have all taken place. They only lack a battle. It's only a matter of time before they become saint kings. Time is up. Everyone, let's go. 4 days later, in a special plane in the Ice Heart Palace, Lin Chen rubbed his chin and stared at Lin Pingon, who was hugging the core of darkness disaster and turning into a black cocoon of light, and fell into deep thought. This girl had been in a deep sleep for almost a year. Previously, he had given it to Lin Pingon after confirming that it would not harm her. This girl is getting more and more addicted to absorbing energy. She's not moving at all. However, Lin Chen was not worried for the time being. She did not look dangerous or uncomfortable. Even if this girl really turned into a disaster, with Zi Qianchou's array, she would not be able to endanger the people around her for a while. At this moment, the heavenly cycle seal of life and death in his mind shone brightly. Lin Chen smiled. Looks like they are almost done. Whoosh! In the Ice Heart Palace, flashes of sacred light descended, and all the servants gathered together. Fei Qinyu, who was chatting happily with her sister just a moment ago, was stunned in the next moment. Although she had heard about it, she was still shocked by this lineup. Lin Chen's servants had all returned. Everyone's cultivation was so strong that it made people tremble. The one with the lowest cultivation was not inferior to her at all. He was also a 7th revolution saint. Altogether, there were a total of 61 people. Including Fei Wushuang, there were 62 people. There were 17 people in the 19th level of the sacred prison, 41 people in the 18th level, and 4 people in the 17th level. It looks like you have made sufficient preparations. Lin Chen smiled and walked into the Ice Heart Palace's main hall. Greetings, master. The 62 servants bowed and cupped their fists. Their words were filled with gratitude and determination. Lin Chen sat in the main hall and nodded in satisfaction. You are very efficient. You are 1 month faster than I expected. In less than 2.5 months, you have completed all your tasks. Everything is ready to go to the Divine Flame Palace. In 2.5 months, Jiang Taishu was in charge of deducing the secrets of heaven, locating enemies, finding experts, and providing support in major battles. Xiao Ling, and Zi Qianchou were in charge of teleporting each servant to their destination. In addition, Xiao Ling, and Ji Wuchen used spatial magic and forbidden spells to seal off the enemy's escape route when they were erasing them. As for Lin Chen's 6 clones, they moved separately and followed the servants. With the help of the ultra-spacetime talent, they ensured that the enemies could not escape. They were also in charge of collecting heads and attribute. In these 2.5 months, even if Lin Chen did not participate in the main battles to kill enemies, his attribute points had accumulated to an unprecedented level. My attribute points have just exceeded the system update's standard line. Yes, I have picked up a huge amount of attribute points from the system update. More importantly, my top-notch essence has also accumulated to a whole new level. I am not far from the next meridian condensation. Lin Chen once again felt how great it was to have a strong force as the support of his foundation. Of course, Lin Chen could not just collect heads for all battles. As long as it was a battle above 5th transformation, Lin Chen could not even join in with his clones. The reason was simple. Above 5th transformation, the level was much higher than before. 5th transformation was already at the top of the pyramid of the Sage Realm. As long as it was a battle above 5th transformation, even if the clones did not fear death, they would not be able to assist. Instead, it was very likely that the clones would be destroyed and lose a large amount of rune energy. Not to mention that Fong Ling's enemies were all 9th transformation old monsters. Once the two sides fought, it would be a scene of heaven and earth collapsing, and stars falling from the sky. Lin Chen's clones would be in danger if they even went close to watch the battle. In a battle above 5th transformation, Lin Chen could only collect the leftovers if he wanted to get attribute points. My lord, there might be one last step to go to Divine Flame Palace. At this moment, Blood Monarch Yun Tian Guang smiled wickedly. Lin Chen said, "What do you think is still missing?" Yun Tian Guang smiled. "My lord still lacks cultivation methods." Chapter 1554. The Sage Monarch Region, the territory of a certain rank 9 force. A vast and ethereal palace was hidden in the clouds. In front of the palace, in a white jade square, hundreds of people were kneeling on one knee. They were either at the perfected Sacred Heart Realm, the Heaven Opening Realm, or even the First Revolution Saints. They were known as mighty figures in the various human regions, and their names were passed down through the ages. At this moment, these mighty figures were all kneeling and kowtowing. "Senior, please come out." This time, they came with ill intentions, intending to destroy the forces of the sacred boundary. "Senior, please divine the heavenly secrets and return peace to our regions." This is a blatant provocation. How can the humans of the sacred boundary let this go? We should catch all these thieves. "Senior, please give us a chance to fight." Our request is only to ask Senior to divine the heavens for us once. "Senior, are you going to leave us in the lurch? Is this how the limitless palace treats our saints? Where is the righteousness, where is the truth?" These human race almighties were shouting in anger, trying to force the limitless palace's limitless old man to come out of his mountain. So noisy. Scram, scram, scram. 2 childish snorts choked all the powerful human beings on the scene. 2 beautiful little girls floated out from the palace, hugging a porcelain doll. They had cute little faces and wrinkled noses as they spoke in unison. "You are not welcome here. Please crawl." The mighty figures were stunned for a moment before they were enraged. They were highly respected and had noble statuses. When had they ever been scolded by 2 little girls like this? The little girl in the green dress narrowed her eyes. "Looks like you want to fight." The little girl in the red dress smiled. "I bet that you will lose first." Boom! A bright moon slowly rose behind the 2 girls. The saint aura suddenly increased, and all the mighty figures felt a suffocating saint aura suppressing them. Other than those at the late-stage heaven-opening realm and above, the rest turned pale. "Qian Shuang Wan Yen. Stop fooling around." The old man's sigh sounded. In the void, a white-haired old man slowly emerged from the transparent void like a ghost. He gently stroked his goatee and had the demeanor of a transcendent being. He held a horsetail whisk in his hand and had the clear mind mirror hanging on his waist. If Lin Chen were here, he would definitely recognize him. It was none other than the white-haired old man who had forced the dragon-devourer demon king and the other demons to retreat and seen through Lin Pingan's true identity as the calamity of pain. He lived in the sage monarch domain and was the patriarch of the Everlasting Palace, a 9th-ranked organization. Although he was a wild crane that lived in seclusion and did not pay attention to worldly affairs, he was publicly acknowledged as the #1 fortune-teller in the sacred boundary. This time, a large number of Grade 8 sects and secluded Grade 8 sects had been annihilated in a short period of time. Many Grade 8 sects and secluded Grade 8 sects had been annihilated, causing a large number of Grade 8 sects to panic. No one knew if the other party would come looking for them. They would rather fight, but they couldn't find where the enemy was. This was the saddest thing. Therefore, they decided to ask the limitless old man to come out. Everyone. The limitless old man said calmly, "This crisis is not within the great calamity and heavenly secrets that I have divined. I will not take action. Please go back. Don't. Senior Limitless, if you don't say anything, we will have to wait for death. Yes, without lips the teeth will be cold. You can't do this." The limitless old man frowned slightly as the mighty figures of the human race did not give up. Just as he was about to send them off, buzz! A 9-colored light shot into the sky from the limitless palace. It seems to be the nimble chess game. The two girls exclaimed in surprise. The limitless old man said in surprise, "The nimble chess game that I left in the Divine Pole Pavilion has been solved? Who is it? Who has such ability? Those 3 to 5 people back then have yet to break through. Could it be a new fortune-teller in the world today? Then who exactly is it that has the ability to break this old man's nimble chess game?" The limitless old man could not help but pinch his fingers as he divined, and his expression became more and more surprised. He could not deduce the person who solved the game. What did this mean? Could it be that the person who solved the game has already reached the realm of an old man? The limitless old man was moved. There have been so many things happening recently. There was the massacre of the powerful figures of the various major sects, and someone just had to solve my nimble chess game. Finally, the limitless old man took out a flag with a white dragon engraved on it. It shone brilliantly as he waved it toward the sky. Whoosh! The dragon's shadow filled the sky as the flag floated in the air. The mighty figures were shocked. Then, the limitless old man waved his horsetail whisk a few times, and the flag danced with layers of dragon shadow. The limitless old man stared deeply at the scene in the flag. Ah! Suddenly, the limitless old man laughed. My path is not lonely. I did not expect that he had already stepped into my realm back then. Yes, even if there is still a small gap between us, it is not far. The limitless old man looked at everyone and said calmly, "Everything you want to know will be gathered at the Divine Flame Palace's Divine God Investiture Ceremony." After saying that, the limitless old man put away the flag and left with the two women. He muttered to himself, "Who exactly is it that can gather all the prides of this era? How strange, how strange! I have to make a trip to the Divine Flame Palace personally for the Divine God Investiture Ceremony." The mighty figures remained where they were, shocked and confused. The Divine Flame Palace's Divine God Investiture Ceremony? Inside the Ice Heart Palace, Lin Chen gave Yun Tianguang a thumbs up. "How handsome! Great minds think alike." Yu Wangxing stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Haha, if my lord wants us to go and cause trouble, then we naturally won't lack anything." Jiang Taishu nodded in agreement. "Yes, that is indeed the case. If my lord wants to challenge the descendant of the martial god from the Divine Flame Palace one-on-one, His martial arts might be his only weakness. That's right. Lin Chen's cultivation technique was very powerful. He had shown the Tai Sky concealing technique to the servants, and even the servants were amazed by its power. However, his cultivation technique and battle skills were still insufficient. Facing the monstrous genius list, Lin Chen had many intermediate orange-grade battle skills and his orange-grade talent. It was more than enough to beat up the monstrous genius list. However, the Saint Talent list was not the monstrous genius list. If the monstrous genius list was a monster, then the Saint Talent list was a monster among monsters. Even Long Jiushan hesitated. If my lord and Wu Pianju were at the same realm, then we wouldn't even frown. We would just beat him up and be done with it. Fei Wuxuang nodded with a worried expression. But my lord is only at the transformation realm. Wu Pianju is at the perfect Saint Heart realm. I heard that he wants to accumulate until he reaches the perfect advancement realm. As long as he wants to, he can step into the heaven opening realm at any time. Only some people on the Saint Talent list could reach the perfect advancement realm. In the heaven opening realm, one saint point could increase one's saint power by more than 400 saint power. However, for the Saint Talent list, it was far more than this number. According to the information collected by the servants, not counting the peerless talent of his martial god bloodline, Wu Pianju's saint power had reached the heaven opening realm. Wu Pianju's total acupoint expansion was 10,550 times, and total acupoint condensation was 2,120 times. This result was a proud result on the Saint Talent list. Chapter 1555. Acupoint expansion and acupoint condensation were definitely not the decisive factors to measure a Saint Talent's combat power. There were all kinds of talents on the Saint Talent ranking, and there were many strange talents. Some Saint Talents could only expand their acupoints by 8,000 times, but when they really fought, they were not inferior to Saint Talents who had expanded their acupoints by 10,000 times. They might even be more powerful. Wu Pianju had been in the Saint Heart realm for 100 years, and he had been pursuing the perfect opportunity to break through. He even said that he wanted to compete with the Saint Talents on the Saint Talent ranking. Among the Saint Talent ranking, except for a few people, winning or losing meant life and death. Until the moment of death, no one knew who was stronger or weaker on the Saint Talent ranking. This was also the reason why other Saint Talents were not ranked other than the top 10. Wu Pianju had been in the Saint Heart realm for 100 years, but this did not mean that he would stagnate. Some time ago, the Divine Flame Palace had announced that Wu Pianju had completed his self-created orange-level advanced technique. Lin Chen had not cultivated an orange-level advanced technique until now. Wu Pianju had already created one. This was the huge gap between them. With his foundation, it was not surprising that he had a few more orange-level advanced techniques, and this was not even considering that he had other hidden cards. If Lin Chen fought him one-on-one, once they fought, the outcome was still unknown. Lin Chen smiled playfully. This time is different from the past. In the past, the descendants of false gods I fought were weak. This time, they are real descendants of gods. Lin Chen rubbed his chin and smiled evilly. The stronger the existence, the harder it is to reproduce. I heard that Wu Pianju is the first direct descendant of the martial god, the son of the martial god. He is very powerful. I wonder what attributes he will drop if I beat him up. With our preparations, we can only find 2 orange-level advanced techniques for the Lord, and we only got them after we killed those enemies. Jiang Taishu opened his palm, and a broken ancient book and a jade scroll appeared in the holy light, sealing a strong spiritual fluctuation. Orange-level advanced techniques were rare, and only 9th-rank forces and a few 8th-rank forces had them. Lin Chen raised his hand to stop Jiang Taishu and smiled meaningfully. No, I won't use these 2 scrolls for the time being. Everyone was stunned. Could it be that the Lord has a better cultivation method? Lin Chen smirked and said, "If it's a cultivation method, don't you guys have a better cultivation method?" That's right, everyone here was the best teacher. This was especially true for the servants on the 19th floor. Every single one of them was a top authority in their respective fields. In terms of sword Dao, Fong Ling was unparalleled. In terms of saber Dao, Lang Fanyun was invincible under the Saint Ruler realm in the Saber region. Just the two of them alone would have a lot to learn. All the servants were confused. Indeed, they had cultivated a high-grade orange tier cultivation method. However, cultivating it himself and letting the Lord cultivate it were two completely different things. It was just like how a single-player king was handsome and Lin Chen was handsome. They were two completely different concepts. "My lord, do you mean that you want to learn our cultivation methods?" Jiang Taishu was bewildered. Fong Ling asked curiously, "But we can't record it in such a short time." That's right, most of the servants here had more or less cultivated orange-tier advanced cultivation technique. Even the four brothers on the 17th floor of the four-way realm C had mastered an orange-tier advanced killing technique. However, this was something that was engraved in their mind. They couldn't pass it on to Lin Chen in one go. Even with the amount of spiritual light in their minds, if they wanted to record the cultivation methods they had cultivated, it would take them hundreds of years. The complexity of an orange-tier advanced cultivation technique was not something a purple-tier advanced cultivation technique could compare to. It wasn't something that could be passed on easily. "Who said I want you to record it?" Lin Chen stood up and said with a smile, "Since I have to learn it, I'll start with you, Wushuang." Fei Wushuang. Start with me? What kind of strategy was the Lord trying to pull? Lin Chen patted her shoulder and smiled wickedly. "Come, sit down. I'll move on my own later." Fei Qinyu. What was he planning to do to her sister? All the big shots were still here. Couldn't he at least find a room to turn off the lights, light a couple of candles, and sing a love song to flirt with her? Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't understand. What was the Lord thinking? Fei Wushuang's face turned red. "Lord, this isn't good. It's fine, it's fine. I'll be very gentle. Although it's my first time, I'm very familiar with it." Lin Chen said seriously, "The first time is always tense. Don't worry, I promise I won't make you feel uncomfortable." After saying that, Fei Wushuang actually closed her eyes and opened her mind. All the servants held their breaths. They didn't see what Lin Chen was doing. Fei Qinyu's mouth was slightly agape. If it wasn't for the fact that Lin Chen had saved her sister, she would have already attacked him. Lin Chen also closed his eyes. Between his eyebrows, a torrential wave of spiritual energy erupted. Boom! His spiritual energy immediately enveloped Fei Wushuang. Then, Lin Chen saw Fei Wushuang's spiritual imprint in the dozens of cycle heaven-death seals in his spiritual sea. He exerted his spiritual energy and immediately drilled into Fei Wushuang's life and death seal. The external spiritual energy directly poured into Fei Wushuang's forehead. And Fei Wushuang closed her eyes and raised her head. She couldn't help but let out a delicate moan. However, which of the servants present wasn't experienced and knowledgeable? They didn't care about Fei Wushuang's reaction. All the servants' attention was on Lin Chen. At this moment, Lin Chen's spiritual energy entered a world filled with twinkling star veins. Within each star vein, he could clearly see all of Fei Wushuang's memories, including her cultivation memories. Seeing all of Fei Wushuang's cultivation memories was something that only Lin Chen, who had used the Cycle Heaven Death Seal, could do. As long as his servants opened their minds and defenses, he would be able to see their cultivation memories. Under normal circumstances, seeing cultivation memories wouldn't be of much use. At most, it would be able to uncover some other secret. However, the person who cultivated the heavenly cycle seal of life and death was Lin Chen. "System, can you help me integrate these cultivation memories?" Lin Chen asked directly. System replies. No problem, but you will need to double the consumption of the original basic cultivation technique essence. The moment he heard this reply, the corners of Lin Chen's mouth curled up crazily. What did the system's reply mean? Presumably, it knew what was going on. Wu Pianju, oh Wu Pianju. This time, I want to see how awesome you can be. That's right. As long as Lin Chen had enough cultivation technique essence and his spiritual realm could support a large amount of spiritual memories, in theory, Lin Chen could use the cycle heaven-death seal and the system's cultivation technique learning function to learn all of the servants' moves. At this moment, all of the servants had become teachers. If they wanted to learn, they would learn the most awesome, strongest, and most professional ones. Chapter 1556. Wu Shuang is still a virgin? Lin Chen was a little surprised and took a look at Fei Wushuang's memories. Fei Wushuang had cultivated for dozens of eras, but he didn't expect her to be a virgin. However, it was obvious after thinking about it. A saint could cultivate for hundreds or thousands of years in seclusion. For someone at the peak of the sage realm, a period of 10,000 years was just a matter of seclusion. The time to do things and feel the world was not much for some cultivation maniac. He combined his mental power and immediately chose one of Fei Wushuang's ultimate techniques to learn. This ultimate skill was a high-grade orange-grade technique called Ambilight. In the past, Fei Wushuang, who was known as the Scarlet Dual Absolute, had one of her best techniques, which was Ambilight Flowing Light. Beginning to integrate Ambilight cultivation memories. 2,300,000 top-grade technique essence consumed. Because the host is using a special cultivation method, the consumption is doubled. Rumble. An unprecedented amount of memories poured into Lin Chen's mind. He immediately released all his clones and formed a circle. Everyone, don't move. Jiang Taishu narrowed his eyes and immediately asked everyone to step back to protect Lin Chen and Fei Wushuang. Damn, the amount of memories for an advanced orange-grade technique is terrifying. Lin Chen wiped off his cold sweat and hurriedly mobilized his clones to integrate the cultivation memories. Even his main body personally went to sit cross-legged in the void. The complexity of an advanced orange-grade technique was dozens of times higher than that of an intermediate orange-grade technique. Everyone protected him. Time passed. 4 days later, in a special realm of the Ice Heart Palace, 9-layer burning sky palm, Lin Chen slammed his palm on Long Jiushan's protective golden light. Blazing flames surged and destroyed the world. Boom! A terrifying explosion raged as Saint Power surged and turned into a storm. Long Jiushan's defense was as immovable as a mountain. Again, 5 colored clouds flowed around Lin Chen's body as he unleashed another 9-layer burning sky palm. Chi! Bang! The entire realm shook. This palm was 50% stronger than the previous one. Long Jiushan's defense was still immovable. However, all the saints in the plain, including Fei Qinyu and Fei Wushuang, were dumbfounded. It couldn't be wrong, it was Fei Wushuang's famous ultimate technique, effulgent flowing light. It can increase the power of cultivation methods below orange tier by 50%. It was exactly the same as Fei Wushuang's, perfect and flawless. No, I still don't believe it. Fei Qinyu suddenly felt that her brain wasn't enough to process all of this and shook her head. Ha, it's your turn now, Yun Tianguang. Lin Chen laughed loudly and pulled Blood Monarch Yun Tianguang to activate the system. 3 days later. Within the exquisite plain of the Ice Heart Palace, there was an exquisite array around it, making the space spacious and sturdy. Rip! Thousands of beams of blood-red light flashed through the void like shadows. They were fine when they were motionless, but when they moved, they were like 1,000 bolts of lightning that flashed in thousands of directions. Boom! For a moment, thousands of blood-red clouds danced wildly in the Linglong plain, turning into thousands of afterimages. Their speed was extremely fast. This was Yun Tianguang's famous ultimate technique, Cloud Shadow Heaven's Light, an orange tier ultimate movement technique. This movement technique was unpredictable, making it impossible to lock onto the real body. Regardless of whether it was a burst of speed or continuous high-speed movement, there were different tricks. Whoosh. Body movement techniques were extremely rare. One had to know that even the Clear Sky Sacred King had only used the mid-orange tier 9 wings of the heavenly demon. When the thousands of cloud shadows merged into one, Lin Chen's handsome figure appeared in front of everyone once again. He laughed mockingly and said, "How is it? Other than the fact that it doesn't have your bloodline, it's not much different from what you used, right?" At this moment, Blood Monarch and Yun Tianguang, who were standing at the side, were dumbfounded. All the servants felt that their worldview had collapsed once again. In 7 days, he had cultivated 2 orange-tier advanced techniques to perfect mastery. And he didn't even have the original techniques? What kind of deity was this? Even the legendary Einherjar's bloodline wasn't that powerful. All the servants were in awe. An orange-tier advanced technique wasn't easy for someone as powerful as a descendant of a god to cultivate. To be able to learn it within a year was already a very fast cultivation speed. But what the hell was this about cultivating it to perfect mastery? And he didn't even have the original techniques or anyone to guide him. Fei Wuxuang said, "My lord is so powerful." Fei Qinyu said, "There's such a thing?" Gui Jianchou said, "I'm impressed." Zi Qianchou said, "My lord is a god forever." Long Jiushan said, "What kind of Einherjar's bloodline is this? Ha 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 ha, it's nothing in front of my lord." Fong Ling said, "Looking at the Einherjar's bloodline is just for fun. If you really want to look at the techniques, you have to look at our lord, Lin Chen, ha 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 ha." Lang Fanyan said, "I'm looking forward to Wu Pianzha's expression now." Qi Fian said, "Exciting, too exciting. If my lord learns all of our secret techniques, oh my god, I don't even dare to think about it. The scene is too beautiful, ha 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 ha. What kind of lord have we followed? This is too scary. Even novels don't dare to write like this." Now everyone was in a daze. Which of the servants on the 19th floor wasn't a proud son of a generation, a peerless genius? The 17 of them had absolute authority and power in their respective fields. Movement techniques, defense, physique refining, attack, sword techniques, saber techniques, assassination techniques, forbidden techniques, formations, and so on. If Lin Chen could master all of their secret techniques, what kind of existence would he be? The scene was too beautiful to imagine. He would definitely become the most powerful transformation state cultivator in the history of the sacred boundary. The servants' eyes were filled with unprecedented excitement. They had a feeling that their lord would become an unparalleled saint-state cultivator in the history of the sacred boundary. However, Lin Chen had thought about it. His techniques were limited, and the consumption of high-grade orange-level techniques was terrifying. Secondly, his spiritual sea had a limited capacity. His spiritual sea, which already had many servants' heavenly cycle seal of life and death, would not be able to withstand the sea of cultivation memories. Therefore, Lin Chen's current limit was that he could only learn one secret technique from 5 people at most. Any more and he would not be able to take it. Lin Chen had to choose their core techniques to learn. Lin Chen suddenly turned around, his eyes shining brightly. "Fong Ling, it's your turn." Ha 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 ha. Fong Ling laughed and the world shook. His aura was majestic. "My lord, my sword techniques can pierce the heavens and the 9 heavens and the endless hell. This is very difficult. My lord, you have to be mentally prepared." Lin Chen laughed. "Bring it on." Time passed and another month passed. On the first level of the sacred prison, many of the prison guards were uneasy. "Damn it, a bunch of good-for-nothings." The golden-armored man slammed his palm down, killing 2 life and death realm prison guards. It's been more than 2 years and you can't even find a trace? Did you eat sh*t or play Tanwan seizing the moon? The golden-armored man was flustered and exasperated. He grabbed a Sacred Heart prison overlord, his expression sinister and dark as he spoke. Damn it, why? I've already given you the authority of the sacred prison, and you can't even find out anything? The Sacred Heart prison overlord trembled as he begged for mercy. My lord, this really has nothing to do with us. We've already tried our best. The sacred boundary is vast, and you know it well. If they wanted to hide, they might have left the sacred boundary. The 36 regions of the sacred boundary were too vast. Even the sacred prison, which had searched for 2 years, could not easily find the ultimate powerhouses of the past. Just the experience of those powerhouses left the prison guards far behind. It was too difficult to play hide and seek with them. Chapter 1557. The golden-armored man was furious, and his eyes flashed. Leave the sacred boundary? No, they don't have that ability. Dragging their broken bodies, they don't even have 1,000th of their peak strength. Where can they go? At this time, another Na-Star Realm prison guard said in a trembling voice, that, Sir, we haven't fully displayed the prestige of the sacred prison. Why don't we publicize the fact and collect clues about those people on the 19th level from the major sects? Boom! Bang! Before he could finish, the golden-armored man slapped him heavily, causing him to vomit blood. Publicize? If we have to publicize to find this kid and those people, then what face does the sacred prison have? Motherf *Ker, if your wife was F***ked and kidnapped, would you publicize it? He was so angry that he laughed. How can you ask such a stupid question? How did you cultivate to the Na-Star realm? Take him away and chop him up. Another Na-Star realm prison guard died in the sacred prison. Listen up, the lords who followed the great true God to the deepest part of the divine river galaxy will be back in 10 years at most. If you don't bring back any information during this time, all of us here will die. The golden-armored man said very seriously, we must not let the outside world know that something has happened to the sacred prison. Search for that kid's characteristics, and those people on the 19th and 18th levels must be done by the people of the sacred prison. The prison guards present were silent. Wasn't this forcing them to die? They obviously didn't have enough manpower. If they could publicize the information and characteristics of those people on the 19th level and collect clues from the major sects, they might have already found something. However, this would undoubtedly announce to the outside world that someone had broken out of the sacred prison and escaped. That would be a slap in the face. Boom! At this time, a supreme saint power descended from the void, and a golden path was formed from the 9 heavens, extending straight to the sky of the sacred prison. At this moment, even the golden-armored man's expression changed in horror. How did they come back so quickly? Within the golden avenue, hundreds of figures flashing with golden light appeared. The scene was majestic and magnificent. The 3 handsome men in the lead were like the sun in the sky, eternally unsetting, as if the sun would never die even if the heavens and earth were to decay. There were actually 3 saint kings. One saint king was already a legend in every era. When 3 saint kings appeared together, it was as if all the chi in the world was gathering towards them. The world revolved around them, and the sun and moon revolved around them. Behind the 3 sacred kings, rank 9 and rank 8 sacred kings formed groups. The golden road spread out between heaven and earth, all the way to the holy prison. The main force of the holy prison had all returned. At a rough glance, there were at least 400 people. The 3 great saint kings stood tall and dignified, on par with heaven and earth. But at this moment, there was a trace of deep fear and lingering fear in the eyes of the 3 great saint kings. To be able to make even a saint king feel fear, what exactly was The three great saint kings looked at each other and communicated telepathically. As expected of a great true God, he can tear apart a galaxy with a snap of his fingers, causing space-time to come to a sudden halt. Every move he makes can annihilate all things. The Divine Emperor's relic. The gods have taken action. Just the outer perimeter of the Divine Emperor's relic is enough to cause the universe to collapse and the stars to collapse. We don't even have the qualifications to watch the battle up close. The fate of the God Emperor has nothing to do with us. The gods have taken action, they have no time to care about the sacred boundary. This battle might last for 1,000 years or even longer. We are not the only ones who know this information. The various rank 9 forces and the Saint Talent list must have some information. The sacred boundary is going to completely change. The Azura race has already invaded the god realm of the four-dimensional universe. They will not return. The insect race has been destroyed. The key is the devil race, the dragon race, the beast race, the demon race, and the dark shadow race who are hiding in the dark. The gods are missing. Where is the future of the sacred boundary? If a strong enemy attacks, we will be like a group of dragons without a leader. While the three great saint kings were conversing, the vast gates of the holy prison slowly opened, welcoming the return of the experts. "Welcome back, my lords." The golden-armored man shouted respectfully and knelt on one knee. The three great saint kings in the lead nodded. Even if they had thousands of schemes in their hearts, they would not let outsiders see it. One of the saint kings said casually, "How is the situation in the holy prison? Is it all right?" The people kneeling on the ground to welcome him immediately trembled, and no one dared to say a word. Seeing the abnormality of the crowd, the three great saint kings immediately sensed that something was wrong. Replying to the three venerables, the golden-armored man braced himself and reported the recent events truthfully. What? Someone broke into the holy prison? Or a human disguised as a demon? And killed a clone of the demon emperor's will? Damn it, why is it getting more and more ridiculous? Are you reading a novel here? He can unlock the 9-killer seal? He even took away all the remaining fellows on the 19th and 18th level. The next day, in the holy prison, although the golden-armored man was terrified, he was relieved. The three great saint kings did not punish all the prison guards. They had actually forgiven them. In fact, it was not that they had forgiven them. It was just that the holy prison needed people now. If these prison guards were killed on a large scale, the current situation would not change. It was better to leave them alive to do something practical. In the secret chamber on the first level of the holy prison, the three great saint kings sat here, discussing the matter of finding the escapees. Now that things have come to this, the sacred boundary will change greatly, and the holy prison is in trouble. We can only use the holy prison's name to recruit people. With our foundation, it is easy for us to gather strength. Let's announce the situation. Compared to face, finding the 17 people on the 19th level is more important. The three saint kings reached an agreement. Why did the three great saint kings place so much importance on the 19th level? In theory, there was a huge gap between a 9th Revolution saint and a saint king. However, there were also 9th Revolution experts on the 18th level, such as Gui Jian Cho and the others. However, there was a huge gap between them and the people on the 19th level. To become a 9th Revolution saint, most of them were either the top 500 on the Monster Genius list or had heaven-defying luck. They had supreme fortuitous opportunities and countless tempering. Experts of this level had extremely strong foundations. Ordinary methods and other factors could no longer affect the gap between experts of this level. What was the real gap? It was divine fate. For example, Zi Qiancho's 12 Dao Palace formation, Ji Wuchen's forbidden technique, the spatial divine arts flowing in Shaolin Er's bloodline, and so on. They were all people with divine fate, the foundation of a true god from the antiquity era. This was also the core reason why they could become the pride of their era back then. Talent and cultivation were not the main reasons. Having divine fate was the most important point. They were the group of people most likely to become Saint Kings. They were also the group of people who posed the greatest threat after becoming Saint Kings. The three great Saint Kings' eyes were especially deep. The saints' world will be in an era of chaos. Chapter 1558. No matter which true god wins, the leaderless sacred boundary will welcome them. At the same time, we can gather those old monsters and the rank 8 sects for our use. Just as the three kings were deciding, the prison master's voice came from outside the secret chamber. "Three venerables, there is an elder outside who wishes to see you. He calls himself Tuo Sheng." Hearing this, the three kings immediately stood up with serious expressions. Tuo Sheng? Could it be the Tuo Sheng from the desolate era? Isn't he dead? No, Tuo Sheng's body has been taken over by a living being he personally raised. Innate shadow? The three sacred kings walked out of the sacred prison. In the air, Tuo Sheng, who was holding a walking stick, looked at the three sacred kings with a smile. "Greetings, Saint Kings. Perhaps we can talk about a deal." "What deal?" "A deal about a jailbreak from the sacred prison." The three sacred kings' eyes instantly became very sharp. Southern region, sacred burial mountain range. Bang! With a loud sound, the ancient bronze coffin was opened. Clear Sky Sacred King stepped on a holy light that was as bright as the sun in the sky. His eyebrows were like swords, and when he looked down at the sacred burial mountain range, he was filled with a murderous aura. "It's been 100 eras, and I'm finally out. Lin Xingchen. I will definitely kill you two little bastards as a sacrifice to my damaged sage king physique." Two figures wearing cloaks walked out of the darkness and smiled faintly. "Clear Sky, I hope you don't forget your promise to the demon race. Your saintly body is always incomplete. Joining the demon tribe is the right path for you. We have already prepared the most suitable demon body for you, and we welcome you at any time." Clear Sky Sacred King nodded with a ferocious expression. "Before that, I will make these two little bastards pay the price. Let's go and meet up with Een Son of Heaven, Ice Heart Palace." The little demon empress was bored as she sat in the main hall of Ice Heart Palace. Her jade-like fingers played with a 6th-grade Saint Pill, and her enchanting figure was fully displayed when she stretched her waist. She was as beautiful as a fairy. "It's so boring. Lin Chun hasn't done anything for a month. When will we reach the Godflame Palace storyline?" Jian Qingqing rolled his eyes at her. "Why are you in such a hurry? It's not like we're entering the bridal chamber." Beside him, Fairy Crimson covered her mouth and giggled. "The climax of a battle is like the peak of sexual intercourse. The longer you prepare for the foreplay, the more enjoyable it will be." The little demon empress' eyes shone as she said excitedly, "Really? Then wouldn't the plot of the Divine Flame Palace be so awesome?" Bai Qianqian stuck out her tongue. "Big Sis Scarlet, your analogy is so magical." Leng Yueqi facebombed. These two women were simply the same as him. No wonder they were attracted to each other. Ning Qingxian smiled but didn't say anything. It was as if she would always be as calm as a lotus, quiet and elegant. Fairy Crimson looked into the distance and suddenly smiled. "I'm afraid that after this battle, the sacred boundary will directly change." Rumble. A gust of wind suddenly swept up in the main hall. A group of figures appeared at the same time, and all kinds of holy power phenomena appeared in the void. There was wind, rain, thunder, lightning, and the azure dragon True Ho. The young man in the lead was like a moon surrounded by stars. All the women were delighted. It was Lin Chen. Had he finally come out of seclusion? Compared to a month ago, Lin Chen's temperament had undergone a huge change. He was both evil and righteous. If he wore a white robe and a crown, he would be like a floating immortal, handsome and spirited. If he wore a golden dragon robe, he would be like a monarch looking down on the world, domineering like a dragon. If he wore a black robe and a blade, he would be like an evil young master, looking at him for 10,000 years. This was a change brought about by learning the various cultivation techniques of the servant. The biggest difference between a saint and a mortal was the temperament that was nurtured by holy power. How is it? Are we going to go and cause trouble? The little demon empress was the first to jump in front of Lin Chen, and she said excitedly, "Are you okay?" Ning Qingxian and Leng Yueqi asked in concern at the same time. Lin Chen's brows showed a hint of fatigue. Lin Chen smiled and said, "I'm fine. How long until the divine seal ceremony?" Fairy Crimson smiled and said, "Less than half a month left. If we include the time we need to rush over, we have about 7 days of leisure left. Moreover, the welcoming ceremony has already begun. So far, I'm afraid that many forces have already started to go or arrive at the Divine Flame Palace." "Master, are we going to be famous all over the world?" Bai Qianqian asked expectantly. "Then, am I going to become the most handsome auspicious beast in the sacred boundary?" Everyone laughed. Lin Chen stroked her hair and said with a smile, "You're very self-aware." Then, Lin Chen continued. "Ice Heart Palace's main base and disciples will first move according to the location indicated by Taishu. Once the battle is over, they will definitely line up at our place. When that time comes, we'll make them miss." The corners of his mouth rose crazily. "Then, we'll rest for 3 days and set off for the Divine Flame Palace. Night, Ice Heart Palace." Next to the snow jade tree, Lin Chen was peacefully leaning on the beauty's lap. Leng Yueqi quietly stared at him, not disturbing him. With a thought, Lin Chen opened the system. "System, I want to update. Activation of the update key. Heavenly Path Attribute Gathering System version 8.0 will be updated. Update cost: 100 million high-grade Heavenly Path points, 50 million top-grade Soul Essence points, 500,000 mid-grade Strengthening points, and 5 billion Set Essence points. All have been deducted. A system update, 0.1%. During the update, the host can use all functions. A day ago, Lin Chen had finally gathered all the attribute points needed for the update. He had also left some for himself as a backup plan. If not for the fact that his clone had followed the servants to seek vengeance, and that Manager Ing had been searching for and purchasing Sage-tier artifacts for him, he would have had to spend an eternity to accumulate the massive amount of Heaven's Path points, top-notch cultivation technique essences, and set essences. When Lin Chen opened his eyes, there was a faint holy light surging. Wu Pianju expanded his acupoints by 10,550 times and condensed his acupoints by 2120 times. When he was at the Perfection Transformation Realm, he could unleash 19 trillion dragon power. If I was only at the Perfection Expansion Realm, even if he was at the Perfection Transformation Realm, I would only be defeated by him. Lin Chen was no stranger to cross-realm challenges, but it was very difficult to cross several realms to challenge the Saint Talent list. Even if he doesn't have the martial god's bloodline, just the expansion and condensing of his acupoints means that he can unleash 40,000 venerable force with his Perfection Saint Heart. He can shatter space-time with a finger. If he uses a high-grade cultivation technique, the power is unimaginable. The corner of Lin Chen's mouth rose. This battle is really exciting. Let's see whose trump card is stronger. Lin Chen stood up and held the cold fairy's hand. He smiled and said, "Sister Yueqi, are you afraid?" The beauty's smile was so beautiful that the world lost its color. "Even if it's a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, I'm willing to be with you until the end. My lord, please have a bath." At this time, 2 beautiful women appeared in the air with an ice heart bath in their hand. The 2 women had the aura of a secluded valley, like princesses of a neighboring country. A single glance could cause the downfall of a city. They were the 2 servants from the 18th level, the twin sisters Tang Haiyue and Tang Feishue from the Heaven Domain. Chapter 1559. Go ahead. I'll wait for you in the main hall. Ling Yueqi smiled sweetly. Lin Chun snapped his fingers and walked to the side of the jade pond. Tang Haiyue and Tang Feishue undressed him and washed his body. The water was the primordial soul cleansing water of the Tianyuan galaxy. A servant on the 18th floor had personally searched for it for Lin Chun. The primordial soul cleansing water was as soft as ice water. It was cool when it brushed against the skin. When the energy flowed into Lin Chen's body, there was a trace of warmth. It seeped into Lin Chen's mind and washed away all of Lin Chen's mental fatigue. In addition, Haiyue and Feishue's Sea Heart Curse cleared away all the fatigue of Lin Chen's sacred body. After washing, Lin Chun came out of the bath. The two sisters glanced at each other. After a while, they covered their mouths and chuckled. Their cheeks were blushing. Lin Chun smiled playfully. I don't use my gun easily. Tang Haiyue smiled. Sister Yueqi, you're so lucky. Tang Feishue smiled mischievously. If there's still time, I'd also like to hear the story of my lord and Miss Yueqi. Lin Chun smiled. My story is not as exciting as yours. Tang Haiyue looked at him coquettishly. It's not like your story will be more exciting when you're older. The things that we sisters have done for thousands of years can't compare to one of your legendary deeds. Lin Chun was a little shy. He coughed and said, Ahem, I'm a shy person. I can't stand your compliments. Why don't you compliment me for a while more? The two girls chuckled. Then, Tang Haiyue waved her hand. A brand new silver battle robe floated from the void. The robe was inlaid with faint silver dragon scales, shining brightly. There was an extraterrestrial star stone around the waist. The starlight was dazzling. The left and right sides of the robe were embroidered with silver patterns. The two women gently helped Lin Chun put on his battle robe. Tang Haiyue smiled. My lord, this star-chasing heavenly morning robe was personally made for you by Master Jin Wuxia. It is an 8th grade sacred artifact. The material was chosen by Miss Ning Qingxian, and the style was selected by Miss Ling Yueqi. The text on the robe was embroidered by Miss Yi Qingwu. Does it fit my lord? Yes, it does fit very well, Lin Chun said with a smile. Tang Feishue smiled slyly and said, That's right. Miss Yi Qingwu told everyone that the lord always acts in a low-key manner, so this dress suits you the most. After saying that, Lin Chen's spiritual perception saw the embroidered words on the back of the robe, the most handsome in the heavens, the only me, Lin Chen. He almost laughed out loud. This little vixen calls this low-key? Lin Mao immediately smiled knowingly. However, he's very sensible, very sensible. I like this kind of low profile, too low profile. It only highlights my only advantage. The two women looked at each other and smiled. Their lord was really interesting. Lin Chun snapped his fingers and smiled. Let's go. Don't let everyone wait too long. Today, all the disciples of Ice Heart Palace had already moved. Inside the main hall of Ice Heart Palace, Lin Chun was wearing a brand new star-chasing heavenly morning robe. When he walked into the hall, everyone had been waiting for him for a long time. Wow, Master is so handsome! Bai Qianqian held her small face with both hands, her beautiful eyes blooming with stars. Ning Qingxian and Ling Yueqi looked at each other and smiled. Fairy Scarlet and the little demon Empress gave each other a high five. Fairy Scarlet smiled and said, Yes, he is indeed very handsome. This is the most handsome I've ever been. Yi Qingwu skillfully put on the sunglasses Lin Chun gave her and smiled enchantingly. As expected, this young lady's eyes were right. If you want to fight a 9th grade force, you have to have this kind of extravagance. Jian Qingqing's beautiful eyes flashed. She was envious of the goddess of Divine Flame Palace. As for the servants, they had already put on the human skin masks condensed from the illusory glass soul and disguised themselves into various appearances. Men, women, old, and young all had different physique. Coupled with the destruction Gemini's concealment technique, it was perfect. Even a Saint King might not be able to see through everyone's identities. Lin Chen looked around and noticed that there were fewer people. He asked in confusion, "Where did Fang Ling, Lang Fanyun, and Tian Hui go?" Jiang Taishu stroked his beard and smiled. "Ha ha, my lord, the two of them went ahead. They said that they want to give you a grand opening ceremony when you appear on the stage, my lord." Lin Chen couldn't help but laugh. "What's with all the fanciness?" Soon after, he said in a serious tone, "Please increase the intensity." Qi Fian laughed boldly. "They all know, ha ha." Lin Chen looked at Xiao Linger. "Linger, how is Ping'an? Her aura is getting stronger, but it's not time for her to come out." "It's just that," Xiao Linger said worriedly. "My lord helped her gather her spirit and control her cultivation, but now she's even stronger than when she was in the holy prison. If she goes berserk, we might not be able to stop her with our ability." "She won't go berserk, I believe in her. Even if something were to happen to her, it would still be her choice. I respect her choice, and I won't give up on her." Then Xiao Linger bowed. "All right, Linger understands. I'll set up a spatial secret technique. Unless a Saint King comes, Ping An's seclusion will be absolutely safe." Lin Chen couldn't help but shake his head and laugh when he thought of this girl's pitiful face when she was afraid that she couldn't help him and wanted to absorb the core of darkness disaster. "All right, I'll also leave a spiritual clone. If there's any problem, I can transfer this girl away." Lin Chen smiled and nodded, then turned to look at the crowd. Compared to back then when he was alone, the current him had gathered the strongest team in the sacred boundary. Under the calm expressions of all the servants, a fighting spirit burned quietly. Lin Chen's fighting spirit had long been brewed to the extreme. Looking around at everyone, Lin Chen said in a clear voice, "All of you have been bullied by the power of the holy purgatory, abandoned by the times, and suppressed by hegemony. I know that all of you have staked everything on me. We are all looking forward to the answer that the times will give us." Suddenly, Lin Chen let out a thunderous roar. "Then we only have one thing left: fight. In this battle, we have to fight with our momentum and courage. We have to let the Saint Monarch domain know, let the sacred boundary know who is the one that cannot be provoked." The servants suddenly let out a thunderous roar. "Our lives are all in the hands of the Lord. Life and death are nothing. If you are not convinced, then fight." Rumble. Bang. The power of anger was like a sword, and Saint Power surged, tearing the sky apart. The sky above the entire mystic realm instantly exploded and burst open. At this moment, countless python-like cracks appeared in the sky above the mystic realm. It was as if the sky was splitting open, and space and time were bursting open. Countless human powerhouses and reclusive old monsters were alarmed, and they looked in the direction of the Ice Heart Palace with a shocked expression. Even the ninth grade force in the mystic realm, the Outer Mystic Island, was alarmed. The island master of the Outer Mystic Island suddenly came out of seclusion and crossed thousands of miles of the void. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the void, but in the end, he could only see nothingness and nothing. How many peerless powerhouses were there to be able to shake the entire mystic realm with just their aura? Inside the Ice Heart Palace, the corners of Lin Chen's mouth curled up, and with a wave of his hand, he was overflowing with arrogance. "Let's go and see the scenery of the Saint Monarch domain. Let's go and challenge the Divine Flame Palace." Chapter 1560. 3 days later. Holy Monarch Domain, Divine Flame Palace. In the main hall of Brahma Mountain, a grand banquet was set up. Thousands of sects presented their gifts. Today was the Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture Ceremony. What was the Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture Ceremony? It was the ceremony where the Palace Master of Divine Flame Palace was born. The Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture ceremony would confer the title of the next Palace Master. Today, they welcomed the Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture ceremony. First, there was competition. Second, only a small number of people knew about the battle invitation. Today, Divine Flame Palace might welcome its first challenger, or it might just be a bluff. In the past, the Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture ceremony was directly passed down by the Palace Master to the next successor. However, when there was a dispute over the successor, it had to go through the Council of Elders. If the Council of Elders voted for the other side, then the power would be equal to the current Palace Master of Divine Flame Palace. The Palace Master of Divine Flame Palace recommended by Ruoyan. The Council of Elders recommended Wu Pianju. When such a situation occurred, there were only two methods left. One was contribution and the other was strength. In terms of contribution, by Ruoyan, who had the eternal sacred fire, had created or improved a large number of cultivation mystic realms for the palace's true disciples and elders. The benefits were endless. On the other hand, Wu Pianju had used her martial god talent to modify a large number of cultivation techniques in Divine Flame Palace, causing the power of Divine Flame Palace to skyrocket in a short period of time. It was close to its peak. Therefore, the two of them were equal in contribution. The only thing left was strength. However, it was obvious who was stronger. Bai Ruoyan and Wu Pianju were not on the same level. Their talent might not be bad, but their cultivation time was too short. There was no comparison at all. However, Bai Ruoyan insisted on fighting. This allowed the Palace Master of Divine Flame Palace to fight for the chance to challenge Wu Pianju in the Council of Elders and Grand Elders. Therefore, the first Divine Flame Palace's God Investiture ceremony was held. In the Divine Flame Square in front of Brahma Mountain, the experts and super geniuses of all the top rank 8 sects gathered. This was a real scene of the top. Those who could enter here and receive an invitation were all top figures of the sacred boundary. Those who were ranked lower than the top 2,000 on the Demon Genius list were not even qualified to enter here. All the important figures were gathered. The rank 9 sects Sky-Bearing Pavilion, Sun-Moon Thousand Beast Sect, and 10 Directions Universal Palace had sent their representatives to attend. The super geniuses present today were especially restrained and restrained. They could only sit in the corner of the main palace. In the past, in the outside world, which one of them wasn't treated like a main character. In the outside world, they could throw their weight around and be domineering, but in this place, which old senior wasn't a monstrous legend whose name shook the 4 seas. The sage monarch domain had no place for mediocre people. This was the peak of the sacred boundary. In the front row of the main hall, the representative of the Sky-Bearing Pavilion was Xing Jiutian, the pavilion branch master who had just come out of seclusion. 2 maids served him and filled his wine cup. He held a cup of 1,000-year-old wine in his hand and smiled playfully. Hee, I wonder what kind of show will happen this time. On that day, the Divine Flame Palace's letter of challenge alerted the 9th rank sects in the Sage Monarch realm and the Heavenly Saint realm. Only the grade 9 forces and the 10 strongest grade 8 forces knew that there might be a good show today. I guess those people won't come. At this moment, a mocking laugh sounded. Xing Jiutian looked to the other side and saw the Vice Palace Master of 10 Directions Universal Palace, Dongfang Wuying, full of disdain. Although he was thin and short, no one dared to underestimate him. His eyes were like an owl in the night sky as he smiled playfully at Xing Jiutian. Anyone who has lived through that era knows that no one can see through the foundation of the Divine Flame Palace. Who knows if those old guys are still here? If those old guys are still here, who would dare to mess with the Divine Flame Palace? The young master of the Sun-Moon Thousand Beast sect was sitting on the side. She was dressed in a white dress, and she had beautiful eyebrows and smooth skin. She looked elegant and dignified as she sat there. There were 2 beautiful azure antlers on her head, and they were as clear as crystal. She couldn't help but smile. It's hard to say. The arrow that day was earth-shattering. Among the 9 Revolution Saints, there are very few who can block that arrow. While the representatives of the 3 Rank 9 forces were talking, within the Divine Flame Palace, within a secret hall, a tall figure in snow-white clothes held a scripture in his hand, and he seemed carefree. The space between his brows was filled with absolute confidence of being in control of the situation. It was Wu Pianju. Whoosh! A beam of holy light traveled through the void. When it arrived, 2 elders in purple knelt on one knee. Divine Son, things seem to be a bit difficult. Shangguanju has protected the people of the Lawkeeper Hall. She seems to be accumulating strength. Recently, there are VIPs attacking, and the people of the Lawkeeper Hall are staying in the palace for a long time. We can't do anything. In this operation, I feel that she is at least at the 5th level. The 2 elders reported and immediately felt that things were tricky. The other group of forces from the Divine Flame Palace, on the contrary, allowed them to struggle at death's door. The strength of the people of the Lawkeeper Hall was not to be underestimated. If they wanted to support a new master of the Divine Flame Palace, they would be the biggest obstacle. Even if Wu Pianju had the support of the Chief Grand Elder, it was still very difficult to eliminate a force led by a Saint King. The Chief Grand Elder supported Wu Pianju, but it did not mean that he would fight for her. Those who had cultivated to the Saint King realm would not easily make a move unless it was the last moment. Especially the old monsters in the Saint King realm, they were in a semi-retired state. Hearing this, Wu Pianju put down the scripture in her hand and said indifferently, "It doesn't matter. The trend of the times will not stop because of one person. Recently there are VIPs coming, so don't act rashly. If there is anything, wait until I become the palace master of the Divine Flame Palace." He showed a handsome but cold smile. It seems that Shangguanju seems to think that she still has a chance to turn the tables. Maybe it's because of the letter of challenge some time ago. Speaking of this, the 2 elders' eyes were solemn, and one of them suggested, "Divine Son, do you want to talk to the elders and increase the strength of the defense?" Wu Pianju suddenly frowned and said indifferently, "Are you telling me what to do?" The purple-clothed elder trembled and broke out in a cold sweat. She immediately knelt down and said, "No. I don't dare. I'm just giving a small suggestion. Get up." Wu Pianju smiled confidently. Today, there are 3 representatives of 9th grade sects and 9 representatives of the Saint Talent list here. There are more than 100 super 8th grade sects and thousands of monstrous geniuses. There is also a venerable protector on my side. The elders of the Divine Flame Palace will also be here. Do you think there will be a mistake? The person who sent the letter of challenge won't even have the guts to come. The 2 elders looked at each other and continued, "Then, what if Shangguanju, that old woman, doesn't play tricks on by Ruoyan?" Wu Pianju seemed to have heard a joke and said indifferently, "In terms of foundation, do you think Shangguanju is comparable to my father? Indeed, Bai Ruoyan has the eternal sacred fire that even my father can't control. With her potential, if she is given some time, there is indeed a small possibility that she will catch up to me and have the qualifications to enter the Saint Talent list in the future. But now, at most, she has the battle strength to surpass the monstrous genius list. She is still a bit lacking if she wants to be my enemy." Wu Pianju opened the successor token of the Divine Flame Palace in his palm and sneered. He exerted force in his palm and crushed it with a bang. "The current Bai Ruoyan is not qualified to be my opponent." Seeing the deity son's confidence, the 2 elders felt that they were on the 2nd floor and the deity son was at least on the 5th floor. The purple-clothed elder joked, "Yes, Bai Ruoyan can at most be the deity son's concubine. She is barely qualified to compete for the position of Divine Flame Palace Master. She is not ranked." Wu Pianju said, "I am not interested in being a concubine. I am tired of playing with women long ago. His expression showed intoxication and infatuation. In this world, there is nothing more interesting than controlling the entire era. I, Wu Pianju, can do what my father did back then. Pass down the order. In 2 days, the sacred fire will be lit and the ceremony will officially begin. After taking over the Divine Flame Palace, I will personally announce the next big plan. Yes. The 2 elders were about to leave when one of them suddenly said, Deity Son, there is one more thing. I want to report. Speak. It is said that the young man who has a relationship with Bai Ruoyan, Lin Chun of the monstrous genius list, has appeared. Wu Pianju was interested. That kid who expanded his acupoints by 30,000 times? Yes, after being silent for 2 years. The first thing he did after returning was to challenge the entire monstrous genius list. Wu Pianju's calm eyes finally shone with a bit of spirit. Challenging the monstrous genius list? Chapter 1561. Another day had passed. The main hall of the Divine Flame Palace stood in front of the Brahma Sky Mountain. The Divine Flame Plaza was like a city in the sky as more and more guests poured in. For example, the Divine Secrets Pavilion, the Pill Regent's Tian family, and the Sword Regent's Jian family were all top figures in the sacred boundary. The 3 elders of the Jian family, Jian Sha, Jian Ming, and the others who were sitting on one side of the Divine Flame Plaza looked at each other. I wonder why Qingqing called us here. Hee, since the Divine Flame Palace has invited many forces of the Sword region, why don't we wait and see? Damn, it's most likely related to Lin Chen. He has an affair with the Divine Flame Palace's goddess, so he definitely won't give up. My poor Qingqing wants to help him again. She's too kind. Where did that cold girl go? You want Qingqing to return to that cold girl who pursued the sword Dao? If it wasn't for Lin Chen, she probably wouldn't even want to see you now. Old thing, you're still pretending to be obedient. The 3 elders bickered daily. Today, the Jian family of the Sword region had 3 sword venerables. Not only that, the Flame region, Battle region, Thousand region, and Heavenly Sacred region had all sent representatives. They were all ruthless characters. At this moment, Heavenly Sacred region's Yi family sends a congratulatory gift. May the Divine Flame Palace last forever. Heavenly Sacred region's Zhao family sends a congratulatory gift. May the Divine Flame Palace last forever. The Yi family and Zhao family had also come. Yi Lixue and the Zhao family had led their respective families into the venue. Some super monstrous geniuses found it unbelievable. According to the rules on the surface, the Yi family and Zhao family didn't have the qualifications to be invited. However, when the representatives of the 9th grade forces saw the arrival of the 2 families, they had a nostalgic look in their eyes. They immediately understood. The disciples of the Divine Flame Palace were currently sitting in 2 rows outside the Divine Flame Plaza. They were wearing the same Divine Flame Palace robes, but the atmosphere wasn't harmonious at all. Instead, they were all ready to fight. There was anger hidden in their eyes. These 2 sides represented the 2 factions of the Divine Flame Palace. One side was the Palace Master and Venerable Guardian Shang Guanju's traditional position. The other side was the new faction led by Wu Pianju. Other than that, both sides were filled with deacons and protectors of Divine Flame Palace. They were all in the Saint Heart realm and Heaven Opening realm, numbering in the thousands. There was no need to even mention the elder group with over 100 seats. The weakest among them was a First Revolution sage. It had completely displayed the current foundation of the Divine Flame Palace. Just randomly picking a dozen or so people to form a team would be enough to deal a devastating blow to a rank 8 sect. The powerhouses of the Lawkeeper Hall also stood on the side of the women, always vigilant against the other side. Among them were Feng Shui and Shangguanchun, who had interacted with Lin Chen before. This day has come too quickly. Feng Shui stuck out her tongue. That smelly guy wants to take over the Divine Flame Palace so soon? Shangguanchen glared at her and said, "Don't talk too much. This is not something we can interfere with." Feng Shui suddenly said, "Do you think Big Brother Lin Chen will come? Some time ago, he challenged the entire demon genius list alone." This question stumped Shangguanchen. He hesitated and said, "With his character, the possibility of him coming is very high. However, there are too many powerhouses here today. Even if he comes, I'm afraid it will be of no help." Alas! Feng Shui's eyes twinkled. "No, I believe Big Brother Lin Chen will definitely come." Shangguanchen sighed and hoped so. In a secret room in the main hall of the Divine Flame Palace, Shangguanju, Shen Lingshuang, and Bai Ruoyan had a panoramic view of this grand scene. Even Shangguanju, who was very calm and experienced, could not maintain absolute calmness at this moment. After all, if she fought with her life on the line, she would not even frown. However, this time, she was gambling with the entire Lawkeeper Hall. This time, she missed the best opportunity to help the people of the Lawkeeper Hall withdraw, and all of them stayed in the Divine Flame Palace to live and die together. Many of the powerhouses of the Lawkeeper Hall were super geniuses who came out of the top 1,000 on the Demon Genius list. Many of them had aristocratic families, forces, and sects behind them, and they were related to the fate of many forces. If Lin Chen did not come, or if he came, he was not strong enough. Wu Pianju and the others would definitely not let the Lawkeeper Hall go. At that time, they would either surrender and become dogs, helping the evildoers, and let the female disciples of the Divine Flame Palace completely become cauldrons to create Wu Pianju's hegemonic force. Or they would fight to the death and destroy everything. Just as the atmosphere was particularly solemn, the representatives of the Demon Genius list have arrived. As soon as this announcement was made, all the voices in the room suddenly quieted down. The super geniuses subconsciously swallowed their throats. The reclusive old monsters narrowed their eyes. The rank 8 mighty figures could not help but look in the direction of the voice. Even Shangguanju, who was in the main hall, could not help but narrow her beautiful eyes. The Demon Genius list was the main event. Boom! Terrifying saint power and aura, like the eternal sun, moon, and stars, illuminated the entire Divine Flame Palace. Outside the main hall of the Divine Flame Palace, 9 people stepped into the Divine Flame Square at the same time. This was an unforgettable moment for all of them. The geniuses who represented the peak of the various regions in the sacred boundary actually stepped into the Divine Flame Palace Square at the same time. They walked into the hall, which meant that they had given the Divine Flame Palace enough face. The person in the lead had a hunched back and walked on tiptoe. He waved his hands, and his messy and blood-dripping hair hid a pair of murderous eyes. His whole body was soaked in blood, as if he had crawled out of a sea of blood. Blood aura surged around him, and every drop of blood turned into smoke. Demon Genius list, Blood Tribulation Fang Xietian. The 9 of them walked side by side. The one on the left had a petite figure. When she strode lightly towards him, her green dress was like a fluttering butterfly, and there were actually faint cherry blossoms drifting through the sky, causing the young woman's dark green and beautiful eyes that were like gems to seem crafty and quick-witted. Her appearance was an extraordinary beauty that wasn't the slightest bit inferior to any one of the top 10 beauties on the genius rankings. However, the most eye-catching feature was the huge coffin-sized sword on the girl's back. The sword seemed to have the power to split open the sky, and a little of its sharpness leaked out, dazzling those on the Demon Genius list. Demon Genius list, Giant Sword Sex Young Master, Flying Flower Chasing Moon Nangong Yu. Behind the young girl, there was a fair-skinned, handsome, and refined young man walking slowly. He looked ordinary and his eyes were closed. He always had a smile on his face, and his hands were like an ancient Buddha holding flowers, aloof from the outside world. Wherever the linen-clothed young man walked, golden lotuses would surge from the ground. Divine light of the great path flowed around him, and he could become the center of the world without any decorations. Demon Genius List, Martial Buddha Shui Yifan. Behind Shui Yifan was a black-armored figure with a sturdy physique. The black-armored young man's muscles were like dragons. He was strong and capable, and his bare shoulders were covered with old wounds. He carried a black axe on his back, and his entire body was filled with terrifying chi energy. He was like a 9-headed demonic dragon from the Antiquity Age. When the black-armored young man appeared, everyone immediately felt that they were facing an unparalleled ferocious creature from the Antiquity Age. This was the aura that he had purposely concealed. All the monstrous geniuses instinctively believed that if he were to release himself, he could destroy the 9 levels of heaven in one breath. Demon Genius List, Wasteland's Overlord Zhu Tianyan. The fourth person from the left was dressed in a plain robe with long sleeves. He was gentle and elegant. The elegant young man held a scripture in his hands. He was extremely humble, and his smile was filled with a warmth that made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. He looked like a mortal, and only his eyes had a soul-stirring saint power. Demon Genius List, Unparalleled in History Dongfang Hong. Beside Dongfang Hong was a cold and stern young man. There was a saint sun pattern between his eyebrows, and his eyes flashed with golden light. His aura was like that of an emperor who had personally gone to war. Almost no one dared to look into his eyes. It was as if he was the mandate of heaven and the messenger of the great path. He was extremely domineering. Demon Genius List, Emperor of the Great Sun Yun Patian. The person at the edge of the left was even more mysterious. Her long hair was like a waterfall, and her snow-white face was cold and elegant. Her appearance was peerless and alluring. Her slender body was covered in azure battle armor, and she carried a dragon-like saint's spear on her back. She was peerlessly heroic. Her fierce and murderous aura seemed to pierce through the heavens, causing all the monstrous geniuses to feel a chill down their spines. Even the experts of the older generation looked at her. This feeling was similar to that of the Shura clan in the past. It was suffocatingly powerful. Demon Genius List, Limitless Shura Qian Inxue. The last two people had extremely similar appearances and auras. They were exquisite and handsome, and they were peerless beauties of the current era. They were not inferior to the number 1 beauty of the sacred boundary, Han Iji. The two beautiful young men were covered in colorful veils that were like clouds and mist. They had phoenix eyes, faint crescent brows, and colorful holy light lingering around their bodies. They could be said to be extremely handsome, and their auras were like immortals that had descended to the mortal world. Even more miraculous was that there were actually 4 beautiful women that were dancing gracefully by their sides. They were formed purely from the energy of their soul cores, and they coiled around the two of them like fairies that were dancing gracefully. Demon Genius List, Phoenix Twin Ji Qianxiu and Ji Wuqing. The representatives of the top-rank 8 forces who didn't know about Wu Pianzhi's grand plan all gasped slightly. 9 saint geniuses on the saint talent list. They were all saint geniuses of the current era, immortal legends. They were all people who had the potential to become saint kings in the future, and they had all appeared at the same time. This scene was like the desolate age of sages and saints, when kings appeared in the world and the sun and moon faded away, but the saint kings were immortal. Divine Flame Palace can actually invite 9 saint geniuses on the saint talent list? I have a feeling that there might be a big change in this god investiture ceremony. It's definitely not as simple as the god investiture ceremony. Wu Pianzhi, the son of the battle god, must have a big plan to make public. It seems like the changes in the sacred boundary will become more and more intense. We can also become phoenixes by riding on the tide of the era. All the old monsters and hidden powerful figures looked at each other. This was the first time they met, and a large number of supermonsters felt the absolute gap between themselves and those on the Saint Talent list. The 9 Saint Geniuses slowly walked into the hall. Divine Flame Palace had already prepared the highest seats, and they all sat down. The 9 Saint Geniuses sat on the high platform, and their power was like the sun in the sky, forming a natural aura that covered everyone's light. It was as if they didn't care about anyone present. Some Saint Geniuses tore open a bag of snacks and carelessly ate. Some lay down and fell asleep. Some closed their eyes and pretended to be asleep. Some mischievous people curiously looked around at everyone present. Some looked as if everyone owed them tens of thousands of dollars, and they glanced at everyone with a murderous look. Some started to eat melons, and some started to play with mantis shrimps. There were even some who held a scroll of a million postures of that night in both hands and didn't care about what was going on in the palace. They only focused on reading the Saint Geniuses' books, and they didn't care about anyone present at all. The atmosphere in the hall instantly became very solemn. Once the Saint Talent list appeared, everyone quieted down. As expected of those on the Saint Talent list, they were full of character. They didn't care about anyone at all, and their actions seemed to be saying, "I'm giving you face by coming here." Now all the guests had arrived. There were close to 10,000 people present. Although there weren't many people present, it was especially spectacular. The top figures of the sacred boundary were all gathered here. At this moment, light laughter spread everywhere. Haha, welcome to the Divine Flame Palace for the Divine Lord Investiture Ceremony. A white-robed man walked out slowly from the main hall of the Divine Flame Palace. He was handsome and unparalleled. The super monster's pupils constricted. This was the martial god's son, Wu Pianju, who had created his own high-level orange-grade cultivation technique. Today, I've asked all of you to come here to bear witness and discuss important matters together. As for what it is, I'll announce it after the ceremony. When Wu Pianju spoke frankly, the old monsters of various forces were shocked. Indeed, those on the Saint Talent list were going to cause trouble. At this moment, the saint in charge of announcing the names sent a message in a panic. There's another guest." Everyone was stunned. Who else would come at this juncture? Chapter 1562. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Wuji Palace's Wuji Elder has arrived. The moment he said that, all the saints stood up, their faces filled with shock. Wuji Elder? He was the most mysterious and widely recognized #1 fortune-teller in the sacred boundary. With the Infinity Elder's status, none of the 9th grade forces or Saint Talents on the Saint Talent list could invite him. Even the 10 great saints couldn't help but be surprised. They didn't expect Wuji Palace to come, but he actually came uninvited? There are many familiar faces today. The everlasting old man slowly walked into the Divine Flame Plaza. Beside him were 2 little girls who were jumping around. Seeing the limitless old man, many experts were flattered and overjoyed. Especially the 10 great elders of Godly Flame Palace, they were overjoyed. They didn't expect Wu Pianju to invite him here. The #1 fortune-teller in the sacred boundary had come. This show and face would add a powerful bargaining chip to the grand plan that was about to be presented to the world. Wu Pianju walked over in person. She greeted him as a junior in a gentle and friendly manner and bowed slightly. "Why didn't you inform us in advance that you were coming?" Even the martial god's son had to treat him politely. The Wuji old man looked at him meaningfully and said with a smile, "Young martial god's son, you are very proud of your success. Do you feel that your life has reached its climax and you are about to step on the peak and tide of this era? You feel that you are about to surpass your father, right?" Wu Pianju, who had always been shrewd and aloof, couldn't help but narrow her eyes. Wuji Elder patted him on the shoulder and said with a voice transmission that only the 2 of them could hear, "You are not even half of your father when he was young. Your father was much more cowardly than you." Wu Pianju narrowed his eyes and said, "Are you teaching me how to do things?" Wuji Elder said calmly, "I don't want you to court death." Then, Wuji Elder said with a smile, "I didn't come for you this time. I am old, and I am just here to join in the fun. Arrange a remote corner for me. I came here to drink tea and watch the show. I heard that Godly Flame Palace's tangerines are good. Get one for me." All the saints were in an uproar. The everlasting old man actually came uninvited? Was he here for the martial god's son? Then who was he here for? And he said he wanted to watch the show? What show? When these words fell into the ears of the representatives of the various rank 9 sects and the top 10 most powerful rank 8 sects, the words of the first layer on the surface gave them a taste of the second and fifth layers. Watch the show? Could it be that this old ghost had come for that letter of challenge? That day, those who invited Wuji Elder to come out of seclusion also felt something was strange. A rare trace of fear flashed across Wu Pianju's eyes as she watched the Wuji old man's departing figure. It was as if his thoughts, ambitions, and plans had all been seen through by this old ghost. The #1 fortune teller of the holy world truly lived up to his reputation. Wuji Wuji, Wuji Wuji, Wuji Wuji Elder. At this time, great-grandfather, why are you here? On the high platform of the main hall, an unexpected exclamation came from the Saint Talent ranking. The beautiful woman was clad in azure battle armor and carried a battle spear on her back. She had an awe-inspiring and valiant bearing, and she exuded a cold and elegant aura. She was the limitless Azura Qian Ing Shui. Great-grandfather, it's Elder's sister. Big sister is here too? Why didn't you tell us? The two girls named Thousand Frost and Thousand Beauty giggled. Everlasting Old Man stared deeply at Qian Ing Shui and suddenly said, "You join them?" Qian Ing Shui nodded and smiled. "Great-grandpa, you said that it was my destiny to ride the tide of the times, didn't you? From now on, it's time for me to ride the waves." The old man nodded with a smile. "All right. However, since you've grown up and are no longer the high-spirited girl who expanded her acupoints 10,000 times, I will respect your choice." Qianing Shui was stunned. In the past, her great-grandfather would always give her hint. "I've made such an important choice this time, and he didn't even give me a hint?" If Marshal Lin was here, perhaps his expression would be very interesting. He had met Qian Shui once in the Jiuzhou continent, in the Firmament Tower. However, that was a story for another time. Fei Qingyu, who was sitting in the God Flame Plaza, had a very interesting expression. Lin Chun had said that if she wanted to know the reason, she could come to the God Flame Palace. Now, even Everlasting Old Man had come. What did he want? The appearance of Everlasting Old Man caused a small interlude. Within the main hall, a strand of crimson divine flames slowly lit up, and it formed a grand path of flames. Two peerlessly beautiful and exquisite figures walked out slowly once more. One of them was as ethereal as a fairy. The scarlet divine flame's brilliance set off the beauty's hair. Her hair was adorned with pearls, and her eyebrows were like the mountains in late autumn. Her beautiful eyes were like jade, untainted by the mortal world. Her dress was like the clouds and snow, making her look like a fairy. Her soft and slender waist was tied with a strand of red light, making her look incomparably beautiful. The divine flame's brilliance surrounded the beautiful fairy. The fairy's slender hands were placed in front of her waist. She was quiet, elegant, and peerless. She didn't need too many decorations. As long as she stood here, she would be the center of the world and could make everything lose their color. Anyone would subconsciously sigh, how could there be such a person in the world? If there were fairies in the world, perhaps she would be the most beautiful one. The other one had a delicate body and a beautiful face. Her eyebrows were curved, and the temperament between her eyebrows was like that of a cold and elegant beautiful woman. Her face and figure were definitely that of a young girl. I like this goddess from the God Flame Palace. Sitting on the high platform, Zhu Tianyan rubbed his chin and said with a playful smile. Nangong Yu, who was at the side, rolled her eyes. So what if you like her? She has to like you first. You're so big and coarse. Zhu Tianyan shrugged. That depends on which part is big and which part is coarse. Nangong Yu had a look of disdain. You can play around with this? Marshal Buddha Shui Yifan, who had been smiling at the side, suddenly said. Compared to the goddess of the God Flame Palace, I'm more concerned about the person beside her. Could it be the most mysterious person in the God Flame Palace, the Palace Master of the God Flame Palace? The elegant young Master Dongfang Hong's eyes suddenly lit up. He glanced at the girl in red and said concisely, "This person should be the current Palace Master of the God Flame Palace. She has the cultivation of a half-step holy king, which is rare in the world." At this moment, the girl in red stepped out of the main hall. Her voice was soft and pleasant as she announced, "Everyone, I'm the Palace Master of the God Flame Palace." Originally, the God Investiture ceremony was supposed to be a festive day for my God Flame Palace. However, today is the first time the God Investiture ceremony has a dispute in the God Flame Palace. It's really the scene that I don't want to see the most. I've really become a joke in front of everyone. After saying that, she turned her eyes and glanced at the seats on the high platform of the Elders' Guild with a dignified and cold gaze. The Elders' Guild turned a deaf ear to her gaze and pretended to be ignorant. Knowing that these old fellows had already changed sides, but they didn't even intend to respond at this juncture, the Palace Master of the God Flame Palace couldn't help but feel angry. She said again, "Since the God Investiture ceremony this time has an objection to the successor of the God Flame Palace, we can only use the traditional method of the God Flame Palace to determine the winner. My disciple, Bai Ruoyan, will fight against the outsider, Wu Pianju. The rules of the battle will follow the 9 chapters and 9 rules set by the Hall of Guardians. The winner will become the next Palace Master of the God Flame Palace." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.